Did you put a live notification?
I did not, but I can.
You should. Oh.
Live new. There we go. Oh. First time on stream for me this week.
Oh, first time on stream for me in 2 weeks.
Yes, you.
Well, no. Yes? I don't know.
Did you appear at the end of my? No, you did not. Appear
I don't think I did.
Stream.
No.
So no, it's 2 weeks.
It's been a while. Oh. Well, in the time that we've had, we have activity space.
Yes.
I say, scrolling so far back, and now I have to scooch back in.
I can move around in rapid pace and test how many frames per second the camera can stream at.
Please don't. The answer is not many. Oh my god. Well.
It might seem silly, but I've given myself a tea time chat.
Well, I think you're forgetting something very integral at the part of a tea time stream.
Yes. What are we drinking?
Yeah.
Well, it's not tea yet.
Nope.
So far, I don't know if we've talked about it, but
I think the cayenne pepper ate the cold foam. I think that's what happened.
So what we have here is homemade Mexican hot chocolate.
Mm-hmm. I almost just spilled it all over the fucking desk. Mexicoco!
Yeah.
I do love Mexican hot chocolate. It's so nice. It's basically just cinnamony and spicy. And extra spicy because...
Yeah, because we're using non-dairy milk and cayenne pepper.
Also, I can't find my 1/8 of a teaspoon measure, so I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon and estimating.
Enough cayenne pepper that it ate cold foam.
Get that out. That also, I realize now that might just be the heat of the beverage not reacting well to the cold foam, because cold foam is meant for cold drinks.
Yes.
But I also don't think I have whipped cream right now, so... You know what? And when I went to the store today to pick up chocolate, I actually thought to myself, I should get whipped cream and marshmallows.
See this?
And then I didn't.
Oh. This has a bite, guys. Like, you feel it burning going down.
It's a little spicy. It's a little spicy. Oh, my God. Oh. I guess I can kick off tea time with the fact that I have not been productive this week.
No.
Well, no, I've been very productive this week.
But not on the channel-wise.
Yeah, not channeled towards channel stuff. So I haven't actually been able to start reading Sin, because I've just been too busy.
We're also behind a little bit on video uploads, I think.
Yeah. Which is just another thing. I'll have some time tomorrow and over the weekend, ideally, and I'll be able to do some of that.
I guess right now, then, what does that mean for tomorrow's FGO stream? Push back? Canceled? You going to play Mihoyo's event? Going to do some grinding on extra quests?
I don't know. I didn't really think about it.
Because I don't think you're quite at, I think May is sort of when you need to be in Atlantis by.
Yeah. I think I need to discuss with my mother and make sure I don't have any plans for tomorrow that need to be, or, we've got some stuff going on that I might need to have the morning, so I might have to, shift stream to the evening, if anything, actually. I might just need to shift stream time to an evening stream, and then I'll still be able to play FGO. It's probably going to be event stuff and free quests.
Okay.
Grinding.
I'll say the event has some really good mats in the shop this time. So.
Yeah. I'm not doing great on the monthly mats. One of them I've got almost nothing. Speaking of FGO, let me not forget my login.
Live breaking of login on stream.
I don't want to break my login streak. That would be bad. Sorry, just clearing my notifications. Oh. What do you mean could not connect to game server? Fuck off.
Seems to be getting in just fine to me.
Yeah, but it just kicked me out. Yeah. Anyways, so you know, that's my if and on FGO and streaming tomorrow. It probably get moved for morning at the very least, so I can run some errands. Because evenings nothing's open, so it doesn't really matter if I stream in the evenings. Okay, I didn't break my login streak. Yeah, I'm real fucking low on.
In fairness, one of those mats is just a mat you cannot grind for yet because you're not at that point in the story.
Yeah, I've been splitting between seeds and other stuff because I know I use seeds for a lot of stuff.
What's kind of the gamble is the older mats you're going to need more of because more servants use them, but the newer mats are just harder to get right now for you.
Yeah. Well, how has your stream-free week been?
It's been good. It's achieved the goal. I want to get back to Fire Emblem. I don't know. When I started, like, when I hit Sunday, I was like, man, I don't actually want to stream tomorrow. Like, I log in, and there's a high chance we enter bitching knick-knack mode.
Oh, and that's terrible.
But the time makes the heart grow fonder. I do want to get back to streaming Fire Emblem.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That too. But yeah, it means but that also has meant that the first half of the week has been silent on streams.
It was, I think. But I mean, sometimes it's just like that. Good evening, Zero. So, the Gang movie.
The Gang movie, yeah.
Well, I figure, you know, some stuff that's popped up lately. So the Gang movie, obviously, neither of us have watched the leak.
No.
Although you've actually gotten spoiled for some stuff, I think.
Handful of stuff. I know the general plot of the film, and I might know the villain of the film.
I don't. My Seki's personal spoiler film that somehow works on everything, even unintentionally, actually did keep all of the Gang content away from me until after you told me. And then after you told me, anytime I see it, I just scroll right past.
Yeah.
So ironically, I've actually completely avoided spoilers any more than I had already been spoiled, which was just the release designs, which isn't a spoiler.
You want to know some fake spoilers that had people up in arms? It's like, no, we knew that wasn't the case for a long time.
What?
Like, so there's two. Both about Toph for some reason.
Yeah, she is the most important character in the show.
Obviously.
Yeah.
The first one that people were putting around like, oh my god, this is a huge revelation. People were surprised that Toph was straight for some reason.
She has 2 kids in Korra. Just because the Gang movie just because nobody respects Korra doesn't mean they're not following established canon, even in the comics.
We also already had the moment, like the queer baiting denial moment in the first series of Avatar.
Yeah.
Literally a scene with Toph being like, oh, I don't like that I just kissed a girl.
Yeah.
So
wild.
That's a non-spoiler.
Wild.
The other non-spoiler is when the person, or when like the first leak screenshot started coming out, for some reason, and this is before the leaks were fully widespread, the person who leaked it went into Photoshop and enlarged Toph's breasts, so everyone thought Toph just had massive badonkadonks?
Why?
I don't know.
I don't see a point.
I don't either. But it was like,
okay.
It was a thing.
I didn't see either of these things, so I'm chill. I'm cool. I will wait for it to come out on Netflix. Not because I value Netflix as a company, but because I value the studio that made Avatar.
It's actually Paramount Plus.
Oh. Well.
Now, I don't value that studio at all, but I do value the creators that are relying on Paramount.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I don't value Paramount Plus, but I value the creators of the series. So I'll wait till it comes out on, like, officially.
It's the same way we watch it on because we watched the Korra on Amazon.
Because I have Paramount Plus edition.
Yep.
Yeah. And I got that so I could watch like shit like NCIS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. For some reason I thought it was Netflix, and then I'm just in my mind.
So
I don't know.
I have a list of quick topics to go through too. One of them I'm going to save because I know we have a larger discussion around that today. But the first one I have here, and I don't know if you heard about this. Did you hear that Nintendo sued the U.S. government?
I didn't hear that they sued the U.S. government, but I heard that a couple of their recent lawsuits did not go the way that they intended.
Yes, they
like
did.
the gaming patent ones.
And honestly, great news.
No,
gaming
that's
patents
fantastic.
the more like common law that's created out of the bullshit gaming patents
The
getting
better.
struck down, the better.
Yeah.
Did you know that one
What
of the
did they
most
sue the U.S. government for?
tariffs?
Oh,
Because
yeah, that's actually...
Nintendo, unlike a lot of companies, has just been eating the tariffs. They have not been raising their prices.
Well, I remember you saying that about the price for the Switch too, right? Because I remember one of my complaints back when it came out was that tariffs would drive the price on it up, and you had mentioned to me that they were eating the cost, and I had wondered if they were also eating the cost difference on games and stuff. Because granted, I think I'm only right now starting to see the effects of tariffs on my day-to-day life, and I think I'm seeing it in a very superficial way, right? Because the way that I am starting to see tariffs affect me is that the period has passed where Big Bad Toy Store is eating the tariff cost on pre-ordered stuff. So Big Bad Toy Store made the decision that they would eat the cost of tariffs for pre-orders for like a certain amount of time, and then after that you would just have to pay the adjusted price. I've hit that, right? So I'm finally out of that, and so I'm seeing like a price increase on figures that I try to buy.
On the video game side, like right now, because of tariffs, mostly tariffs, and as well this is another thing Nintendo's eating the cost on, at least for now, but this one might be a little bit more volatile. The chip shortage. The PlayStation, their flagship version, the Pro, $900 right now.
Okay, well, I hadn't looked at that because obviously I have a PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I haven't been looking. Then the other place where I'm seeing the effect of the tariffs, at least in my day-to-day life, is probably the most superficial version of it, but it's that... so my friends and I sometimes recommend each other like Amazon products that work for us, right? Like I have a set of chargers that work like fantastically well that I ordered. And what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of things I ordered just before tariffs went into place, right? Like, and a lot of them were like not very expensive and very obviously ordered from like China and shit. And those are the kind of things that like I send those links to my friends and they're like, oh, this is just not available anymore, right? Like it's just not shipping into the US because there's no like cost benefit for these companies to ship it into the US. And one of the things that's most noticeable for me, at least, is, you know, like my headphones here. So I have two sets of headphones. I've had them for a couple of years now, and you can tell they're getting a little beat up, right?
Yeah.
So I really like those headphones though. They fit my head. They're very comfy. They're light. Like the sound quality's great. I went to see if I could order new pairs. That brand is no longer shipping into the US. So I'm seeing it like in that way, and I know that that's a very superficial consumerist way, but because I haven't been buying games a whole lot recently, and the games I do buy are digital, I'm not seeing it in the gaming market.
Tariffs tend to raise all prices ultimately, but the thing about the tariffs, and this is why you might not be seeing it as much, or you might start seeing it less and less. The Supreme Court ruled that all of Trump's tariffs that he put into place under the justification of a national emergency were unconstitutional, not surprising to anyone other than Trump.
I was going to say, but that's wild for our current Supreme Court setup, given that they are...
Oh, they're looking. It looks like they're ruling against Trump on another major case too, but that's politics. I need to avoid wading too far into that realm because I could go all day. Seki knows this.
Yeah, and I do not tolerate that.
And I majored in like Seki anthropology, knick-knack political science, but knick-knack does not need to be dumping political science on this channel.
Yeah, the irony here is we do have a small intersection of politics, which is historical politics.
Yes.
In that I'm actually quite well versed on historical politics, but as soon as it hits like the 1960s, my relative knowledge drops like a stone and knickknacks goes up.
Yeah, for me there's an interest in it, obviously, but it's more an interest in analyzing the current day through the lens of what happened back then.
Yeah.
But that's beside the point here. But because they were deemed unconstitutional, unsurprisingly, Nintendo was the company that turned around and was like, okay, that was unconstitutional. That was illegal this entire time. We want our money back because we've been eating the cost this entire time.
Oh, yeah, I could see why. Yeah. Honestly, I hope they win.
It looks like they probably are because the U.S. and this either is probably going to be either going to be a settlement or it's going to be a full, or the U.S. is preparing for the fact that they're going to lose this because the Supreme Court, one of the dissenting opinions pretty much was dissenting because they were scared about the implications of what happens if the U.S. has to grapple with this issue. There's leaks obviously more rumor than anything right now, coming out that the U.S. is starting to look at the current, like trying to look into systems they can use to issue the necessary refunds. Corporate side, obviously, the consumer isn't going to see a dime for the people that didn't pay, and all this money is going to go to mostly companies that did not end up eating the cost.
Yeah. But still, it'd be a good. I think it would be a good decision that would make sense. I don't know. I just think that, and granted, this is one of those things where I think it just took so long for me to actually like hit a point where the tariffs were having any like actual effect. Like I just didn't see them for so long, right? Like I knew that they were there, but they weren't affecting most of the stuff that I was doing day to day. You know what I mean? So I kind of knew they were there and I wasn't happy about them, but I kind of put it out of my mind and was like, oh.
Well, it's easier in California. We're in California. A lot of farm to fork stuff, especially around where we're at. But the kind of result of that is we're not seeing it in our food as badly as some parts of the U.S. might be.
Yeah, because we are not just the farm to fork capital, but like, for example, we are one of the largest rice producers in the world. We are like some of the largest like fruit and nut producers in the world, like etc. Like I think what was the last is that like California's economy is like one of the top 10 strongest economies in the world, right? And that's like versus other countries. And we're just a state inside of a, federation basically, So that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird to be rooting for Nintendo because like I actually really admire that they've been eating the cost of something like that because I do think it's bullshit. And I think that eating the cost of something like that is kind of a good business practice. And we've discussed it before.
Yeah.
But also, I just dislike Nintendo from like a very money-driven, visceral standpoint as not a Nintendo fan. Like, not a nostalgic Nintendo fan. So, like, in general, I just want to root against Nintendo.
The problem here is Nintendo is, at the end of the Nintendo's a corporation, they're going to have their own, like, cultural sour points when it comes to money. Every corporation does. I think just, and this is a topic we'll get into later, I don't think a lot of U.S. consumers are always geared towards seeing that it doesn't feel as normal to the U.S. consumers as often.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other things, like the price of their games being pretty firm is actually part of why they can eat the cost.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, you don't like that they don't go on sale as much, but that is the old model, is that the games run a little higher, but that also means they're making up the console sales, or the consoles being sold at a bit of a loss.
Yeah, I see it, doesn't make me happy.
Well, you might like the next thing I have about Nintendo here, because
oh boy,
it's been enough of a time where I have a couple different things on Nintendo.
You've got multiple Nintendo topics over here.
So this is only in the UK for now, but I can see that, especially because you can actually switch your eShop location if you want. Nintendo is switching their pricing model up in the UK. Now in the UK. Well, two things, actually. First is they're going to be embracing variable pricing more, which means certain games, I think the most recent Rhythm Heaven game put out by them is actually only $40 when even their budget titles normally go up to $50, $60. But the other thing about that is, starting with the new Yoshi game coming out in the UK, digital titles are actually going to be cheaper than the physical cartridges, which normally drive up the cost. That's the famous Nintendo tax on physical games. They're not going to have that reflected in the digital price anymore in the UK. So hopefully that comes elsewhere.
The irony of that is I don't think, like, I understand... on a grand scale of irony, I don't think I've ever considered how unfair it is that most companies charge the same for a digital game as they do for the physical game. I've always just kind of, like... I think my thought process has always been, and this is coming from a very Steam-oriented, right? Like, Steam and PlayStation-oriented, division of thought, is that in general, I don't really mind if you're charging the same $16,999 for a digital or a physical, because I know on the digital I'm almost guaranteed to get a sale in the places that I shop with the way that I wait. Whereas if I go into the store to get a physical, there's less chance of there being a good sale on it.
Here's another reason you might not have ever really considered it, because it's not as big of a topic. Because, while yes, there is a difference in the physical price for production, obviously, because the box takes extra money, the disc takes extra money. Discs are significantly cheaper, especially for Sony, who literally produces the Blu-ray discs that they print these games on. Nintendo does not produce their own cartridges, and they're using a proprietary cartridge instead of a typical disc, so it can actually slot into the Switch for it to be handheld.
Well, but then, I mean, think about Anno. So I got the Anno 117 Collector's Edition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for a given value of the Collector's Edition, right, you would expect to get, like, the game, we got the Coliseum, we got all the metal pieces, we got, like, the art, we got all that shit. Famously, do you know what didn't come? I got an empty box with no disc, because it doesn't come with the disc, but it comes with the game box and a steel book, but no disc.
So
for the Governor's Edition,
I'm glad Zero Hera brought up keycards, because what you got was a code in a box.
I got a code in a box, but the box still came with 2 separate storage cases for discs that were not included, and I knew that they weren't included in the final price because I knew I wasn't getting a disc, but to include, like, the plastic game box and the steel box with no disc feels very odd.
Do you know anything about the Nintendo keycards?
Only that they're specific to Nintendo.
Kind of. This is where, like, Zero Herrera brings up that he thinks the keycards are BS. I'm not as... I have my problem with Nintendo, especially as it comes to copyright. The keycards are actually the least of my concern with Nintendo, because, frankly, it is an answer to 2 things. The first is the code in the box you just mentioned, because that was happening on some console... It's karma for defending Nintendo.
Yeah.
That's because a bunch of console games last generation were getting a bunch of code in the boxes for.
Well, that's the thing. If I'd bought in the PlayStation version of Anno 117 Governor's Edition, I still would have gotten a code in a box.
Yeah.
But I would have gotten the PlayStation case with nothing in it. And the thing is, I'm not mad. They advertised online that it was not going to come with the disc. But why even send 2 disc cases if you're not sending a disc?
And obviously, the code in a box, it comes with disadvantages compared to physical. You can't share a code in a box. Not easily.
Yeah.
So Nintendo started printing key cards, which are basically blank cartridges. There's nothing on the cartridge, but you slot it in and it downloads, and it activates the game.
Okay.
Obviously, this is not good on a digital preservation front, because a lot of people rely on these physical cartridges to exist in the future, at least being able to well preserve that and be able to download it when eventually the servers go down.
Yeah.
That's not going to be possible with the digital key cards, so companies are flocking to those and using those as an excuse not to put any data on the card. And that's why people have a problem with it, because from a digital preservation front, it's horrible.
I found so obviously, as you can see behind me, the office is clean. In cleaning the office, as I was just thought it was topical, I actually found a bunch of my old Nintendo cartridges for my DS, which actually means I can try to beat the Glory of Heracles again finally.
Yeah, because you have a 2DS.
Yes.
But
somewhere in there, I think.
But the other side of that is this isn't really a new phenomena. It's just Nintendo putting a sticker on the box now that says this is what's happening. There's a lot of games where if you pull out the disc or pull out the Nintendo cartridge and stick it in the console, you'll find it asks you to download most, if not all, the game.
Offline.
It's just now Nintendo is having them label them and be honest about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I'm pretty sure like with and I've experienced this with some PlayStation games, right? Is that I can, like, I think with Assassin's Creed, because I do buy physical copies of some games, but not in the way that you guys probably think. I actually don't buy new physical copies of anything, but I buy used physical copies of things when I can find like five games for $50. Here's the rack of games, and then I'll look through the rack and see if there's anything I'm like particularly interested in, because I don't really care if my game copy is used most of the time when I'm buying like a.
Well, that's the thing about
like a thing, right? So, but where I'm going with that is I've had it happen where I like plug in like some of these, like I'll plug in an Assassin's Creed game, and in theory, like the way that I understood how discs worked, right? Like in the past, was that the disc contains the game, right? Plug in the disc, play the game. So why with the Assassin's Creed games, I plug in the disc and then it says, hey, you need to make a connection online so that you can download this much assets from the online store that aren't held on the disc that you have to have along with what's on the disc.
And in fairness to the people who have a problem with game key cards, this is still the same issue. That is an issue, and that's always been an issue. But it's also not an issue that's getting any worse or better with the key cards, really, other than having to be honest about it. Actually, I'm happy they're honest about it because people complain about it and show how much they hate the practice. I just wish that the other companies were more honest about how much of the disc had to have downloaded onto it. But here's the other thing about the key cards, and I see you mention it there, that you need the key card to play even after downloading it. Here's the thing. Yes, it sucks that that's the case, but you know what I can do now with that key card that I wouldn't be able to do with a code in a box? I thought another
Lend it to me.
Yeah, if I have key cards for a bunch of Resident Evil games. If I ever wanted to torture Seki on a Halloween, I can literally just give her the key card, and she now has a copy of the game that's not it's easier shared. Though Nintendo's also managed to be a little bit equitable about the digital sharing thing, because I can literally also just send you my digital game to play now.
But I think same as Steam, right? Like one copy of the game still. So like even if it's a multiplayer game, we couldn't both be playing at the same time, unless we have separate copies, which makes total sense.
It's also on a time frame that needs to be refreshed every once in a while.
Yeah, which to me it makes total sense. I have no issues with games being like, hey, you can share this with another person in a family library or something, but you can't both be playing at the same time unless you both have copies, right? I get that. That's 100% something I understand.
I think where things get to be bullshit about the digital key cards is a lot of companies that have no business making these games digital key cards. Like games that did not have any space problems fitting onto a normal card. And games that, like, they're just doing it to save money because they don't want to pay for the expensive tax on the full cartridge. Now, I'm hoping that if that variable pricing between physical and digital thing sticks and it comes worldwide, we might start seeing companies take advantage of that so that they can price, hey, I want this smaller game on physical, but it's physical. We have to print it for a full, like, $50, $60, $70 price, but this is for the collectors. If you just want to download the game, it's $30, $40, $50.
Yeah, because I think the other thing is, like, if I'm buying a collector's edition of a game, I would like to have, like, whatever disc I'm buying it with, right? Like, for example, my collector's edition of Indiana Jones comes with the disc, right? So it's a little irritating to me that my collector's edition of Anno doesn't come with a disc. And that's kind of like, obviously, it's a bit of a weird thing for me to be upset about because I have a PC copy and my PC doesn't currently have a disc drive. So I couldn't even use the disc if I had it, right?
But it would be nice, because then if your account, every one of your Steam servers ever dropped, you could literally buy a disc drive,
and
plug
it's not
it
on
into your
Steam.
PC. Yeah.
It's on Ubisoft Connect.
Oh, so if Ubisoft ever lost their servers, but you could literally just plug your an external disk drive into your computer and download it that way.
Exactly. So like in some ways, I'm kind of like I'm a little like I knew I wasn't gonna get the disc when I bought the Governor's Edition, but also the Governor's Edition was like the nicest collector's edition you could get of Anno, and I'm a little pissed that it didn't come with a disc. But I knew it didn't, so I'm not that pissed. Like, I bought it knowing it didn't. I just think it's stupid it didn't at that price, because keep in mind, it was $180.
Now, here's the thing. We also don't... Here's another, like, factor that's, like, it's sort of to it's not necessarily to get rid of the panic, because obviously, in the grand scheme of time, eventually these servers are going to go down. But we have yet to have an online digital server of any major... No, like, obviously there's exceptions, like Google had, like, their weird platform going on there. But
we haven't had a major server go down.
Like, we haven't had an Xbox, Sony, or Nintendo or major online PC server go down where you couldn't even download your games that you had previously purchased. Like, even the original, like, Xbox, is it 360 Xbox Live? You can, if you bought a game, I think you can still download it. You just can't buy new games.
Yeah, I think... And here's the thing. Obviously, I don't see Steam going down anytime soon. I don't see PlayStation or Nintendo or Xbox truly going down at any point, like, soon, right?
Especially now, because all three companies are kind of homogenizing their servers, and they're forward porting them. Like, I don't think they can get away from backwards compatibility anymore, because it's not like everything's got its own digital infrastructure anymore. It's all largely easily moved to a new platform.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting if it were to ever happen. Not that it has. Tacos had a comment about The Mandalorian for you a while back.
Yes, I watched the trailer. I'm whelmed. It looks like Mandalorian and Grogu. I saw some huts. Huts are cool.
And then Dohorio came in. Good evening, Dohorio. Something about Bravely Default Remaster moment? I don't know what that is.
I'm not sure with the Bravely. I have Bravely Default Remastered. I don't think was it on a key card. It might have been on a key card. And that game was on a physical 3DS cartridge. Like this is not a graphically intensive game, so if it was on a key card, that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this did not need to be on a key card.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I guess knowing that I know that the Switch works different than the DS, but like for some reason I thought that like the cartridges were like these ones where it was just kind of like the game is on.
Well, even the next console, the 3DS had games that were larger off cartridge. You had to download day one patches. Not as often as the Switch, because it was still not quite in the modern HD console where you're downloading most of the textures online. But the DS was a almost completely offline console for most of its life.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know.
The other side of that, though, is when you have, like, if there's a game-breaking bug on any of the cartridges, or the cartridge turns out that there was something that went wrong with it, there was no way for the company to patch it outside of releasing a new version. The people who had the old one were kind of fucked unless they had a send your copy in thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I have had broken cartridges before, like games that just don't work. Actually, in here, I think in here I've got a copy of my old Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Here it is. It's the only... No, that's Pokemon. I know I've got Mario and Sonic. Let's see. How far down is it? There it is. So this is my Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games. Famously, I love this game. I love this game to death. I played it so much. It was possibly...
What does it do now?
So you get to a certain point in the game, and then all of your save files corrupt, and you can't go any further. So you can't go past a certain
So you can launch
level.
it, but after a certain point in the game, the save file just wipes itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which really sucks because I really loved this particular game, and I always wished I could finish it, and I never got to.
If there was an issue where it wasn't launching, that's actually not an uncommon problem for DS cartridges, but there's a really easy fix for that. But if it's launching, that's a
Well, I don't know if it's launching now, but at the time when I stopped playing it, it was I would get to a certain point and then I just couldn't play any further.
Because sometimes you boot up the game, a DS game, and it'll just say the file cannot be read, the game cannot start.
Mm-hmm.
The way you fix that is you just take the game.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say I'm not going to do it to one of your games because it is actually not the best thing for the cartridge health if it's a healthy cartridge. They sound like this and just go BAM, and it starts working again.
Yeah, I don't know, but this one, I don't know. This is one of those games that, like, because of that, I've considered getting, like, a new copy, you know? And then, like, trying to play it, like...
If you don't... I guess it's a mini game based DS game. It's probably gonna have a lot of touchscreen controls. I say you don't really have. I could literally get you an emulator or something on your PC. No one cares at this point.
It's like 90% touchscreen based controls. Yeah.
And you don't have like an Iron Thor or an Amber dual screen.
No. I might give it another try and see if that's still the error that shows up when I launch it. But if not, I might look into getting something new at some point.
So I guess. On the topic of, unless did you want to take over, or I have other topics I can go through?
I don't think, I've started to see, I think this was something I meant to bring up to you and I just didn't. I've started to see a lot of online content about the AIM Thor.
Oh, God.
Like, a lot of online content
I've been on mine so much lately.
Dude, it's blown up in spaces that I'm in. And, like, typically you and I occupy very different spaces online. Like, our feeds don't traditionally overlap even a little. Like, even when we're on the same website, our feeds don't really overlap. But I've seen a ton of stuff about the Iron Thor lately. So
the DS is kind of having its nostalgia moment, and the Iron Thor is currently on the market, the best emulator device for it.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's a really fun device. I will say, something you don't always see, especially in the short form websites like Instagram or TikTok, with the Iron Thor, it is a lot of setup. It does not come out of the box like.
Actually, TikTok's where I've been seeing the huge surge in its like.
Yeah, no, I know it's been there a lot.
Yeah.
But on TikTok, they don't tend to show how much setup goes into making this thing actually work. Like, especially if you, like, DS games,
they do kind of make it look like a plug and play. Like, you just pull it out of the box, open it up, and you can start going right away.
And that's just not the case. You have to download the emulators yourself. Not all the emulators are great. Like, the DS, the common Melon DS, which you can get an emulator for in the Android store, it doesn't immediately work, actually. That version on the Android store does not support dual screen. You have to find a fork online that someone developed that supports dual screen. 3DS, you're gonna have a hard time figuring out what types of ROMs work and which ones don't. And really, some people are gonna try going through RetroArch to get their emulators working, and RetroArch is actual hell.
Well, and I mean that's all. I think the thing about all that is that's all something that I would expect from basically what is essentially an emulator console.
Yeah.
Right. Like I expect there to be a lot of like legwork that you have to do on your own.
But
I'm not upset about that.
There are a lot of cheap emulator consoles online, especially if you go somewhere and they're selling them from China, that will come preloaded with emulators and ROMs.
Mm-hmm.
They're easier, but they tend to be much lower quality and they work a little bit less consistently.
But I feel like this is gonna be so. I don't like the price of the Switch, right? Don't like the price of the Switch 2. I think it's unreasonable, right? I don't know how much the Einthor costs, and you can tell me in a second. But I think for something as versatile as the Einthor, I'm okay with a higher price point and a harder what's the phrase, like a harder base value of knowledge about it, right? It's sort of, the Einthor exists in like a weird space for me where in my mind, because it's so versatile and it can be used for so many things, and a lot of the things it can be used for are genuinely something that it is kind of like the premier in the market, like the exact market that it's in. I don't mind a higher threshold of knowledge on getting it working, per se. Like that is an active thing that I'd be willing to learn.
I think the issue with the Einthor, on that note, though, with its versatility, is you do still have to know what you're hoping to play on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like on something like a Switch or a PlayStation, you can do equal amounts of like store browsing and game watching, where you see like the new games coming out are, and really create your playlist that way. Einthor is all an emulation console. Like, yes, you can play some lower end new games, but they're like indie games mostly, and you can play that on pretty much any device.
But as someone who really does enjoy nostalgia, I see a value in the Einthor for myself, right? Like, there's a lot of DS games that I really like, and if I didn't have a DS currently that worked, I think it's been a while, like I would be very tempted to do something like an Einthor, depending on its price.
The Einthor's value is mostly going to come from the fact if you're playing DS or 3DS games that relied on that dual screen hardware.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's even better like if you're only looking at playing the 2D games that you still want that same architecture, the Odin is actually, a lot of people are going to find it more comfortable to hold.
Mm-hmm.
And better. Then again, you prefer the form factor of the Einthor over like the Switch and Steam Deck form factor.
Yeah, something about it, like it's close. Like I liked the DS size, and the Einthor is closer to the DS. That like
if I go to Realm, he actually hates that form factor. He's looking at the Odin because he prefers the Switch Steam Deck form factor, which is more comfortable to hold.
No, I like the DS, and I think that's just nostalgia. I never moved on to the Switch, so. Or any other console ads. Like, I just had the DS. That was the only console I had growing up.
I've been playing my Einthor more, and I have my Switch for classic games, even if I have the emulator available on Switch, just because it's just that much more comfortable, or it's that much more nostalgic and easy to move around with for me.
Yeah, Zerher, that's what my spine's been doing all day today. Cracking.
To break the mystery here, so this is the model I think most people are pushing around, which is only $50 less than the Switch. There's the base model, which is weaker, but this is gonna have a harder time with DS with higher end games. Like when I said that some new games can play on them, this might not be able to play them at all. And then if you're willing to lose 3DS compatibility, you can go down to this.
Yeah.
And this is the model I have, which is just more internal space.
And it runs on Android OS, right?
Yes.
So it runs on Android OS. What's the predicted longevity of it? Do you know?
What do you mean?
Because I'm sure some people have already kind of like predicted outwards, like in terms of if somebody has one, like how long is it going to last them effectively?
Depends what you mean. 'Cause I don't think
battery life, quality, emulation of the games they want to play.
It feels like I've heard a lot of talk that's a good quality, but it's like you can buy a Chinese Android phone and it's going to last you a decent amount of time still. But the time is not necessarily support in terms of apps and software. Remember, a lot of this is an emulation device. There's not going to be a software cap. It's just the past library up till now is pretty much always going to still playing, and it's just not going up past now.
Yeah.
But you're not playing like the new AAA game you can play on Steam or even on Switch. In like Switch titles, even like it's hit or miss whether or not some of them can run emulated on there.
Yeah, I think that's a lot that feels
Large
like a lot
backlog for
to
someone
me.
like you who hasn't played a lot of those.
Yeah.
But if as a primary gaming device, it's a very different niche.
Yeah, that feels like a lot of money to me, but I think I remember what the DS cost when it came out. Like my DS, and I had a Nintendo DS Lite.
Back then,
Um,
the DS consoles were like 100 to
I
200
think it was like
bucks.
$120 or
Like
something for
it
the
was
Lite.
crazy when the 3DS was $200.
Yeah. So I kind of like it's one
It
of those
feels
things
like,
where like I know it's going to be more expensive. Like I knew it was going to be over $200 at minimum, right? I knew that going into
but
it.
that's not the price you're used to seeing consoles.
Yeah. But it's not that I'm not used to it because I mean the PlayStation and like the new Switch and everything.
Think about it this way: how expensive are modern phones compared to phones back then?
Yeah, I
And
don't
this
want to
is-
think about that.
Yeah, this is still like the Switch 2, for example, is still significantly cheaper than the phone. In fact, it's about the same. Like if you go phone, like the ratio of like handheld console to phones you could buy now, like on the higher end phones, it's the same ratio.
Yeah, I don't know. Phones hurt too. My last laptop hurt. That's why I've been hanging on to my laptop for so long. I haven't been willing to. Like my laptop is significantly slowed down, right?
Mhm.
Like over the years, and I've
But then
had
you're
my
looking
laptop.
at new prices for new laptops, and it's like,
Yeah, and also just like other factors in terms of a laptop because like there's things I want in a laptop that aren't necessarily standard offer anymore, like ports and storage and like upgradability and stuff. So like when I look at a laptop now, I'm looking more at there's a couple brands that do like component buildable laptops. It's a little bit more expensive, but you basically order the components you want and they ship you the components and the case and then you essentially build a kind of interchangeable laptop that you can use for a while.
that's the other thing, though, Wario. The phone is actually a decent emulator device these days. This isn't like both Apple and Android now have emulators on them, and the Androids you're getting on the Iron Door are already Android compatible emulators, especially if you have an Android phone.
Yeah, and I do have an Android phone.
You've already got access to most of these emulators. In fact, the phones, like I actually have a DS emulator on my Apple iPhone right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to play a DS game, literally Pokemon Soul Silver here.
Yeah.
Something like this exists.
Yeah.
And touchscreen compatible. It's not going to feel too weird because you're still on a touchscreen.
Yeah. I think let me.
You could put that on a phone. So unless you're really, really married to the idea of playing on the old 3DS or DS, like
Or
form
something
factor,
that looks like a
yeah, it's not necessarily going to be the best purchase for everyone who wants to play emulator games either.
Yeah. Excuse my banging and clanging for a second while I.
Yeah. Here's the other thing to consider. The 3DS is very easily modded. So a lot of people right now are having a debate online as to whether or not it's better to mod your 3DS.
Is it 3DS?
That's a 3DS or a 2DS.
Couldn't remember.
Or better to buy an Iron Thor. And a lot of people are like, it's not... That's a little bit more complicated, but if you have a 3DS lying around like that, and you just want to play old DS games, that's sometimes just the best way to get your old DS emulators, is just modding the 3DS.
I've completely forgotten how you put game cartridges into this.
Can I see? I don't remember that.
Oh, is it this?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, all the DS models do different things.
It's so long since I used this, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a hot minute.
Here's the other thing. For DS games in particular, not 3DS games, but DS games in particular, you don't even have to mod your 3DS if you're just looking at DS games. There's something called an R4 cartridge. A little cartridge. It's a flash card. You can literally put a micro SD into a cartridge, stick it in your DS, and it'll have the emulators on there too, and they'll just play.
I remember something about this. I hate this.
The Iron Door has something like that too. It's not that. It's more like a PlayStation controller, but it's not like the DS where it's just there.
My DS only had the
And but as the 3DS, because it's running 3D games as well, it's got to have something like that. Or
I don't like it very much too.
You prefer just having the D-pad there.
I prefer just the D-pad and styluses. Like I'm old school, I guess.
But even
DS.
the Iron has like its joystick up there too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things. I think I remember I saw it blow up on TikTok a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh, I should mention it to.
Look,
I
fully endorse it as like a verified, like, this was my generation handheld. I collect gaming handhelds. I love my gaming handhelds.
Yeah.
I'll probably try to pick up even some of the stupider ones like the PlayStation Portable or Portal when that eventually starts dropping in price one day.
I think for me, I'll have to plug this in and see if it's still working. But so long as this one's still working, I don't see a point in investing in anything new. And as honestly, as of last time I played this, it was still working. So, you know.
Like if you want to tinker with DS games you didn't play before, just let me know and I can literally
Yeah.
load them onto an R4 card for you.
Yeah.
Um,
That Dahoria, that's what I was saying I didn't like. I don't like this, like, circle pad, you know? Like, I'm not a fan of this.
It is a little cheap even compared to joysticks, but that's just because they had to have the clamshell design. It had to feel intuitive and not breakable to kids.
But I think this is one of the reasons why I don't like the Switch, right? Is because the Switch is so big. This fits in my pocket, right? This fits in girl pockets. And girl pockets are, like, we all hate them. They're terrible. They're not going away. Fashion is not moving towards, you know, universally giving us better pockets.
You're
so,
not
like,
the biggest sufferer of it, though. You still have the natural pocket.
Shut the fuck up. But this is like pocket sized and like small purse sized. To me, this feels portable. Even the original Switch doesn't. Like, I understand that it's meant to be portable, but to me that feels too big to be portable, whereas this feels portable still.
If I were to make a difference here, that is a portable console.
Mm-hmm.
That is a travel console.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can travel with the Switch. Put it in a case and take it and play it in the hotel room. Mm-hmm. That's easy. That's what most people traveling with the Switch will do.
Yeah.
You can't just take it out on the bus with you and whip it out.
Yeah.
Whereas that, you could take on the bus with you and whip it out while you're waiting between stops easily.
Yeah, because like 90% of my DS playing as a child was in the car to and from skating competitions.
And then the Switch, you can't do that unless you have a backpack or something and put it into a case.
Yeah.
Different aims. That's why Nintendo kind of had to, like, they released a smaller version as well as a little bit more portable. Not much.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not DS, but it goes from being like that big to more like that big.
Yeah, I get it. I just, at that point, like, I think if you're already buying something that big, you might as well just get the bigger, better one.
Yeah, the one that actually plugs into your monitor and can be used as a console.
Yeah, and I think my opinion on that isn't necessarily because I think, like, bigger is better. It's just that if I think your choice is, like, if you're already going to be spending a couple $100s or, like, a significant amount of money, and your choice is between, I can get something a little bit cheaper and save myself $100, but it's going to be lower quality, or I can get myself something a little bit higher quality that might last longer, that has, like, more, and in this case, more technological longevity, right? Like more powerful, etc. I will always lean towards either don't get it or get the better version, right? That's why I got the disc drive PS5 and not the digital only, right? Because I think if you're already investing over, like, $100, $150, then invest in something that's an actual investment.
Look, I get it. Sometimes I get it in ways where it's like, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing. Like, I didn't really need to buy the Mac signed door. Mm-hmm. I could have bought the Pro because I have a worthless 1 terabyte micro SD that I can't even stick into the Switch 2 because it uses a newer version of that.
Oh.
So I could have just stuck that into the iron and had the same space, like up the Pro, and had the same expanded space and no real downsides.
Mm-hmm.
But I still got the Macs.
Yeah, Dahorio. Knickknack's got one, and here's the thing, if I was going to buy a Nintendo Switch, I would in fact buy a Switch 2, like the nice version. I'm just not going to. But, like, you know, for all my complaints about the Switch 2, it would be my preferred choice of what I was going to buy if I was going to buy one. Just because, like, technological longevity and quality. Like, if you're gonna make an investment, make an investment. Don't half-ass it, because you will regret it, and then you will be out a certain amount of money, and your only choices will be to spend even more money or be upset with the thing you have for the time that you have it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a worthwhile use of your money. Like, if you can make up the difference and save up that little bit more for the more expensive one. Obviously, if you can't afford the more expensive one, don't get it. The smaller one is just as good in terms of, like, being able to just play things. But if you have that budgetary, like, wiggle room, do it, because you will be happier in the long term. But I believe in that for a lot of things. Like, I also think that about, like, clothes and shoes, most types of technology, etc. Like, get slightly higher quality and it will last you longer. Like the jumping in point is higher, but your return is also equally high.
That's not always true with not Nintendo consoles, but with consoles in general. Because let's be real here. If you think about the base PS5 versus the PS5 Pro, or the Switch, the Switch One versus the Switch OLED, which is also a Switch One model, getting the old console doesn't really mean you're not able to play the same games. The actual performance difference of a PS5 to PS5 Pro is so minimal, the internet kind of memed on it for a bit, and in fact, most of its changes are AI.
But I'm not considering the PS5 Pro. I'm considering the original PS5, like, digital and disc editions.
Oh, I know. That's what you did consider. But, like, when you're entering if you're looking at hardware purchases on consoles, they tend to cut off the console at the same time. Like, yeah, there's sometimes a better version, but they're going to cut it off at the exact same time.
When it comes to consoles, right? Your best value is always going to be the one that's actually worth the price, right? Like the disc drive was worth $100 extra. Whatever the difference between the regular and the Pro is not worth the extra
money. $200, $300 now, I think.
Yeah, and it's
like $600, $700, and $900.
Yeah, the difference between those two is not worth it, right? So it's buy the higher version as long as the higher version is worth the upgraded cost, right? Like, in terms of the PS5, that's a specific example of something where it's definitely not worth it, right? But, like, if you were, for example, going to get the Einthor, right? Mm-hmm. And you wanted to emulate, like, a ton of old games, right? Like, you have a huge selection of games you want to play, right? Then you probably should go for something with a slightly higher storage quota, like a nicer version, because you can really cram it full of stuff.
Here's the problem, though. And this is where I'm calling myself stupid here, because I got the nicest version with the biggest storage tank.
Mm-hmm.
If you're emulating games, these old emulated games are significantly smaller than modern games, which that's why we have the 1 terabyte storages for a lot of our hardware.
Yeah.
A lot of these are like, oh, you're not even hitting a gigabyte on some of these. You're hitting only just above a gigabyte on the 3DS games. So...
Yeah, but I'm saying from the perspective, if you know you have a ton of stuff you want to put on it, right? Because, like, let's put this into perspective. I recently upgraded my storage in my PC, right? Like, as of, like, I think it was just before the RAM prices spiked, I got new SSD, right? Like, storage cards. And the thing is, I went through my Steam games library and I added up all the storage spaces of all the games that I thought I might want to download and all the games I'd want to play, like in the event that maybe I keep all these things downloaded at the same time. And I was like, okay, I need about a terabyte and a half. So if I get 2 terabytes, that'll be good enough and I'll still have a bunch of extra space on my PC, right? Lo and behold, 7 months after that-ish, I'm already out of space. And at the time, I was discussing with Vaughn, and he was like, we could do more than 2 terabytes extra. We could do like 4 or 6 terabytes extra. And I was like, oh, I definitely don't need that. Like, that's excessive, especially for the price hike. I was lying to myself. I'm actively now out of storage on both my laptop and my PC, and I'm having to undownload games. And granted, I keep a lot of things, like, I keep big games downloaded that I don't necessarily play all the time, but I keep them downloaded so I don't have to wait 2 hours to play them when I want to play them.
And consoles use, like, because this isn't really a factor, like Goho Wario says, you could probably fit the entire DS library on a terabyte.
Yeah.
So, like, you're probably never going to come close to that terabyte amount, to be honest, unless you're downloading movies or such.
Yeah, but
like, on consoles, you're a lot more likely to hit that point, and older consoles did used to have different memory storage tiers, but that kind of fell out of style, I want to say, in the PS5, Xbox Series X generation.
Well, yeah, because the PS5, like, I remember it was a big thing because people got their PS5s and then they realized that the 1 terabyte of promised storage was actually only 800 gigabytes because over 200 gigabytes was just PlayStation running software. So you lost 200 gigabytes and then every game coming out was like 50 to 100 gigabytes. So you could realistically only fit like 4 or 5 games and still have space. That bullshit
only has 16 gigabytes of space on it.
Yeah, like my PlayStation... Like, I don't have a storage expansion on it. I think you have one on yours,
yes.
Right? I didn't. I've chosen not to. And so anytime I want to do something new, I have to undownload something old. It's really a problem. I don't like it.
It's a little difficult.
It's really annoying. And the only reason why I haven't done the storage expansion is because I simply don't want to pay for a bigger storage and then have to install it. I simply don't want to do that. I think that's a ridiculous thing to have to do. So I'm stubborn. I will just undownload and re-download as needed.
Yeah. So it's it fell out of style, and now it feels because they're trying to push you either towards external storage, or they don't think you really need the storage, or whatever. I don't know, or they just didn't think consumers were buying very many models, so they prefer to print one model at that consumers will all flock around instead of printing some that just won't sell as well. But,
Yeah.
So here's a fun rumor. I haven't seen it have a lot going on, but you know how Steam is talking about entering the console race a little bit with their Steam machine?
Yeah.
And then you also have Xbox with their game launcher on their PC as well, separate from Steam.
Yeah.
And that there's talk of Steam integration into future Xboxes.
Uh-huh.
You know what? Who pulled out, like, who's made open statements that they're no longer going to be releasing their games on PC as often? PlayStation. PlayStation doesn't plan to release their single-player games on PC as often, if at all, anymore. At least not on Steam. The rumor right now is PlayStation is working on a game launcher of their own on the PC that'll carry over your PlayStation library. So you're staying in the PlayStation ecosystem. Which, if this does go, if consoles do go towards the way where it's like, okay, these are just PCs with launchers on them, or they're like Linux or Android based kind of things where it's like a closed ecosystem, but you can also make some software work. That makes a little bit more sense if you can launch the PlayStation games.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I can access my digital PlayStation library from my PlayStation app on a PC, right? I'd be okay with that. I actually wouldn't be too upset about adding another launcher.
Yeah.
I already use 3 or 4 different launchers as it is because I have some games that are like Anna 117 is only on Ubisoft Connect. I have some stuff on Steam. A couple of my like my solo leveling game is through like a different fucking launcher. I've got Genshin's through the Hoyoverse launcher. So it's like I have a bunch of things that are through different launchers. So I already have a collection of them.
All that said, I don't know. Like, this is something they're supposedly looking into. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. And also, to point out here, Xbox has been trying something similar to that. And Xbox literally just fired their CEO and vice president, or their president and vice president, because this strategy went to shit.
Well,
so that, like, Xbox might even be pulling back from nearly as many cross-platform releases with Steam and PlayStation and Nintendo.
Yeah, I think the key to PlayStation's success in this will be to actually cultivate, to actually cultivate their titles, like their proprietary titles. You know, like bring back stuff like Uncharted, bring back like new God of War games, keep them on your own console. Don't Steam publish them.
I don't know. There's no credibility behind this that I know of, but I feel like I did see a rumor flying around this last week that there is a new Uncharted game in development.
I think there is, yeah.
It's just not going to end.
Same as there's the new Tomb Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, the movie drummed up enough new interest that they've been in talks to make a new one.
But one of the guys that was previously kind of attached to Uncharted at the hip, but stopped developing Uncharted when Last of Us became a thing, Neil Druckmann, supposedly won't be involved with this one, presumably because he's working on, I think it's a sci-fi game right now. And then obviously he's also really neck deep into Last of Us too.
Yeah, all that is to say that if PlayStation wants to be successful, they need to bring back their big title franchises and publish good games in those franchises and then keep them to themselves. I have no issue with PlayStation or Nintendo or Xbox keeping their own proprietary titles. I just think that if they're going to keep their proprietary titles, they need to make them accessible. Right? Like one of my issues with like the God of War franchise is how hard it is to play the old games, you know? Like I don't think I can go back and play like the original God of War games.
Well, supposedly they are developing a remake of them right now.
Yeah, well, that's what they said about Witcher 1, and it's been 6 years and we've heard nothing.
And they've also said this is a long-term project, so this is going to be a while before you get the official release. Yeah. So, like, I will say I support PlayStation on that. Xbox I'm a little more iffy on, because you know about Xbox, right?
What about them?
You've definitely heard of it, like Elder Scrolls. They just went out and buying a shit ton of studios that historically have been third-party, like, all rapidly at once. And if Xbox followed through on keeping all of its own franchise Xbox, Minecraft would be Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
And that's like, it's very Disney in terms of how it's operating, which it would be kind of shitty if they started doing that, and probably illegal given that was one of the terms that allowed them to buy Activision.
Yeah. So I don't think Xbox could do it, but PlayStation could. I mean, right now I think PlayStation's really only losing market share because they're not willing to keep porting games forward on their own consoles, and they're not actively producing
they're very
regular releases in their own proprietary game series.
They're very new game focused, and unfortunately those new games tend to get very homogenized. There's a lot of games this is obviously a stereotype here, but the stereotype of the PlayStation game is a walking simulator where it's more playable movie than video game. Obviously you have a few exceptions, like Astrobot's an exception. Spider-Man's kind of an exception in like 2/3 to 3/4 of the game. So it's not wholly there, but it definitely it feels like a lot of PlayStation is lost potential right now. And it would be nice to see them bring a lot of this back.
Yeah. Oh, well. Do you want to move on from gaming?
Yes.
Because I think we've started retreading the same arguments as we usually do at a certain point.
I do have a couple things I want to speed through. We don't have to spend long on any of them, but I'm sure fun thoughts. We're not done with the One Piece live action adaptation. We need to come back to this one next time we do a tea time chat.
Yeah, because we haven't finished it yet. I know, terrible One Piece fans, but I've just been so busy.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of weeks. Like, we've seen the first couple episodes, but we haven't finished the whole season.
We watched the first 2 episodes in theaters. That was fun.
Yeah, that was super fun. And then we've watched half the season.
Yeah. We stopped just short of Chopper, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because we stopped at the end of Whiskey Peak. No, because we watched Little Garden.
Yeah, we watched Little
Garden.
So other flash topic here. New chapters of Fairy Tail. I saw that and I'm like, oh god, if they're animating that, Seki's gonna crash out.
Well, no, isn't it part of the anniversary project? It's not.
It's an anniversary project,
yeah.
New chapters of original Fairy Tail. Yeah. But what are you gonna do if they do a short season, a 1-core season of Fairy Tail adapting these new chapters?
I don't think they will.
They did. They adapt some random ass shit with Fairy Tail.
They'd probably OVA it, if anything.
Or they'd incorporate it into
100 Years Quest, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do have a little OVA I'm gonna make you guys watch. That's 3 minutes long.
Okay.
No, it's 3 minutes long, Knick Knack, at the end of the series. So after we've finished the whole 328 episodes or so, and I'm gonna have us watch it all together, on the podcast. Or, you guys won't see us watch it, obviously, because of copyright reasons, but we'll watch it as we're filming when we finish it this season. But I'm kind of, like I said, I will read them, but I'm done with shoving Fairy Tail down your guys' throats. You've had enough Fairy Tail. The boys have had enough Fairy Tail. You've expressed to me that you have had enough fucking Fairy Tail. I need to let it sit.
I need time to make the heart grow fonder.
It will be a cold day in hell when I put Fairy Tail back into the hat at this point.
We've already talked about Gang.
Yep.
I'm not going to talk about that because I've kind of been going off about my love of this game in the Discord. It's not worth continuing on that on the stream. Last topic, flash topic I have. Jacksepticeye is producing a Bloodborne movie.
Oh, that could be good.
It's interesting.
Here's the thing. Bloodborne is one of the games I really like the premise of, and I've always thought I might enjoy the story of, but I've never actually played, even though I have access to it.
I'm a little concerned because they're attaching a YouTuber to this. It just feels like they're running off the heels of Iron Lung.
Yeah.
But we'll see about it. It could be cool. I'm sure incorporating Jacksepticeye into the marketing is going to work out pretty well. Mm-hmm. But because our channel has a resident Bloodborne fan, I reached out with like a good little journalist and asked him, so how are you feeling about the Jacksepticeye Bloodborne film announcement? Realm, our resident Bloodborne fan, gave me the response, actually, didn't know this was happening. I'm curious to what he'll do, though. All I can ask is that we get a good video game movie adaptation. Well. Yeah.
I don't know. I think from what I know of Jacksepticeye, right? And I am a fairly long time subscriber of his. I don't watch all of his content because I don't generally enjoy watching other people play video. Let me rephrase that. I don't necessarily enjoy watching other people play heavily narrative-based video games like that because it kind of feels like I'm watching somebody else watch a movie, but I don't get to talk to them while I do it. I don't mind watching things like Minecraft SMPs or stuff like that because it's entirely open. I don't mind watching sandbox games. like people play them, because that's kind of build your own story, do your own thing. Narrative based games, though, I'm not really a huge fan of watching other people play, right? So like I don't watch other people play Witcher, I don't watch other people play like Assassin's Creed games, etc.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not my thing. But like I've always enjoyed Jack's videos, right? And I think he's one of like very few creators that I've watched that kind of, I feel like they haven't really compromised on like their values and kind of like the way that they enjoy games and like the amount of respect that they give towards games that deserve it, like over the years. Like he's been pretty fucking steady. I think the same thing of Markiplier, you know, is that they're both pretty like straight shooting.
It's fun thinking about the crowning achievements of all the gaming YouTubers, like the big gaming YouTubers that era. Markiplier made Iron Lung, Jacksepticeye's about to help produce Bloodborne, PewDiePie launched MrBeast's career.
And Jacksepticeye just made Did you hear about the drama between Jacksepticeye and MrBeast?
No, oh yeah, no, I've heard about that before. He's like, I don't like MrBeast, and then just left it at that.
Well, no, he also said that MrBeast is like...
everything wrong with YouTube?
Yeah, and then MrBeast thought that he could clap back on Twitter and win? Somehow? He didn't.
You don't usually win in that kind of drama.
No, like, people have their own opinions.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have a pretty large amount of faith that Jack will at least, like, attempt to... like, he'll be as faithful as he thinks he can be to the
He's
game that he enjoys.
not directing it or writing it,
well,
so
yeah,
this isn't like quite
yeah.
like Iron Lung. But
No.
having his input like on the production side of things could be interesting.
Yeah. And the thing is, I like the idea of Bloodborne. I've never played it, but I would like to. I just haven't, because I haven't had time.
Yeah, don't worry, anything but a remake of the game.
Because it is a pretty old game now at this point, isn't it?
PlayStation 4 is not that old.
Well, PlayStation 4 had a very long shelf life, friend.
PlayStation 5 is getting a long shelf life.
Yeah. So, I mean, you just say PlayStation 4. That genuinely, knick-knack, that could mean 12 years ago.
Okay, but I don't like the process that the DS is now farther in the rearview mirror, I think, than the SNES was when I was playing the DS.
Yeah. Yeah. Knick-knack, sometimes I still think that the 80s was 20 years ago.
I started playing Pokemon in Gen 4. It is now Gen 9, going on Gen 10. I have been playing Pokemon for over half the franchise's lifespan.
Yeah. Yeah, I was discussing how long we've known each other the other day with one of my college friends, and they were just like, how long have you known the boys? And I was like, over half my life we have been friends.
Yeah, don't worry. That's kind of the feeling I've been getting, is that people just don't like it that it's dropped on PlayStation. The problem is Bloodborne is technically a PlayStation it is a PlayStation produced title. It's just developed by From Software. It sits in the same kind of place as Pokopia, just less obviously using PlayStation IP. Bloodborne is a PlayStation IP.
Mm-hmm.
So its chances of coming out on PC right now, especially if PlayStation's pulling back from single player PC releases. Yeah.
Like, bottom of the barrel low.
It's not the same as Elden Ring or Dark Souls, which they can put on any platform they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to PlayStation to put it out on the PlayStation 5, and at that point, it's just to get it in 60 frames per second, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe newer textures.
Because you can play it on PlayStation 5. I know, because I have it. I just haven't played it yet.
Okay. So. Bato.
I'm so frustrated, right? And I think that it is so valid to be frustrated about when things like Bato happen, right? Bato's not the only major site we've had taken down in the last couple of years, right? Let's talk about online piracy and sort of scanlation websites and such, right? So obviously, like I said, Bato's not the only one. I think
MangaDex had a massive shutdown.
MangaDex had a massive one. A couple of other platforms that when I started reading manga online used to be piracy websites have converted to non-piracy websites, but by doing so lost like the majority of their catalogs.
And it seems like it's a double-pronged attack from South Korea and Japan on this.
Yeah. And it hurts, right? And it hurts in a very interesting way, because I fully believe that you should support the creators of webtoons and manga and stuff. I actually like. I think Nick Nack would know better than anyone sitting in this office with me that I full-heartedly support the idea of buying physical media from its creators so that they can make money off of me to continue what they're doing. Right? That is tantamount in my mind. Like, there's a reason why I have almost 2 entire shelves of just manhwa.
But it's
right?
harder to support like these weirder online webtoon platforms with their more experimental.
Well, and it's
monetization models.
not just that, right? Let's say that there's a 3-pronged problem here, right? One, there's a very vast variation of online manhwa and manga websites that are actually legitimate, right? And basically every single one of them have different pay models, and while they might be somewhat similar, it usually comes out to it's pretty expensive to like follow it, especially like long running webtoons and stuff like that. It's pretty expensive to keep up with them. It's pretty expensive to keep
There's pretty
buying
much a
them.
cap on how many chapters you can, or how many, not chapters, how many series you can follow at once. Because if you're getting a chapter a week for all these series, sometimes at the exact same time, that adds up.
Yeah, so there's that, right? Secondarily, the saying that you should go read them on their proprietary platforms and pay for them there when digital is not your preferred form of media has a couple of issues, right? And I've discussed this before with a very specific platform. So I'm on Legend Plus, which is the version of Legend that allows you to read the R-rated manga that they have on it, right? So like basically yaoi, yuri, hentai, that kind of thing. And as a connoisseur of media, I am on that website. And I have bought chapters on that website, right? So because I wanted to like read a series and I had to buy certain chapters so I could read them. I don't have a digital download of those chapters. That's not included in your buying price on a digital website, right? Like you buy the ability to access them from your account on that website as long as that website is supported. Now, I bought the physical copy of Ennead, right? Doesn't matter what happens to Ennead, I will always have this physical copy of Ennead. I will always be able to open this up and look at my physical copy of Ennead. I will always be able to open this up and look at my physical copy and read my physical copy of the Ennead. Now, the chapters I bought on Legend Plus, let's say in 2, 3, 5 years down the line, Legend Plus becomes unprofitable and they cease operations. Other manhwa and manga websites have ceased operations before in the past. I spent $20 buying chapters on there. Didn't get a digital download. They were just accessible from the back end of my account in the app. Right? So...
Well, it comes back to that discussion we had on gaming earlier with the server loss.
Yeah, so, like, physical media. I like physical media, right? I want to support authors, but because I don't like the uncertainty of, like, digital media and platforms, right? Unless I'm getting a physical download of the chapters that I can download to my personal device, right? I don't like it, right? And that's for the very reason that what if it goes under? Manhwa websites especially are very volatile, right? Their catalogs are volatile. Their profitability is volatile.
It's new, experimental. A lot of the stuff can go down when they have exclusives.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, so instead of buying chapters of the Ennead online, I, as soon as it came for pre-order on Amazon, I put a pre-order in, right? And I put pre-orders in of a lot of manga series on Amazon, right? Not with the intention necessarily of buying all of them, like the whole series going through, but more so as like putting down my pre-order provides a physical and economic representation of the desire and the demand for this media in the West, right?
It's the same reason I buy like 15 copies of Type Moonworks.
It's exactly the same, because the thing is, I have 2 copies of every Ennead book because I bought the hardcover and the paperback of every volume. My paperbacks are behind my hardcovers, right? And it's because I want to express my support for that catalog being published into the English world, right? Because the thing is, like, manga is more commonly getting translated, right? Most manga you can find an official English translation online through Shonen Jump or whatever magazine or publication they go through, even if it's just an online like official translation that you can like purchase access to, you can find it. Manhwa, that is still not the case.
It's getting there because of Solo Leveling's success.
It's not, Knick-Knack. As someone who is deep in these spaces, It's actually really not.
But I have to imagine it's better than it was 4 years ago.
It's better than it was 4 years ago, but it's nowhere near what it could be, you know? So, like, two-pronged, right? There's, like, I want to be able to have physical media. I like to support authors. I want to support things getting translated and published in paper in the US. And the best way to do that is to buy physical copies of the media when it is available as a physical copy, right? What about all those works that aren't translated and published into the US? What about the thousands of stories that aren't officially translated?
Well, we get that
into
on
the
Type
US,
Moon side as well, because
right?
there's a lot of Fate fans. There's a lot of Fate works that are just not, most of them are not released in the West. So we did get a new localization announced, by the way, but that's...
Yeah. So, right, and keep in mind, obviously I don't necessarily say I'm speaking for the average, like, Bato user or anything, but, like, for the vast majority of stuff, like, I read a lot of stuff on Bato, right? And I kept a list of, like, most of the stuff I read on Bato on, like, a notes pad in my phone. And what I would do was every so often, I would go to Amazon or Barnes & Nobles and I would check to see if any of these things had been announced for publishing. And if it was something I had read and something I had enjoyed, I would put in a pre-order on the first volume, right? It was like, yeah, like, yes, I read it, I pirated it, so the author did not get anything from me, but I will express how much I want this to be published into physical copy in English, right? Because in so many ways, right, I think Korean and Japanese publishers, right? And it's the publishers, not the authors, right? The publishers, I think, are undervaluing the amount of international market share that is gained by having these pirating sites around, right? Because the thing is, and this goes even outside of the English-speaking world, like a lot of people were really upset about Bato because of non-English translations, right? Like the most common language for webtoons and manhwa to get translated into is English, right? What about all the people who need it translated into a different language other than English, right? Like the vast majority of like, let's take, I saw someone complaining, someone from Thailand I saw complaining, right? Thailand has an even smaller amount of stuff published into Thai officially than we have published into English, right? And Bato was the only way that they could, like, read a lot of this stuff and express their interest in it. And to be honest, the thing about the piracy sites is I feel like, and I can't, correct me if this is a revolutionary idea that no one's ever had in the history of the world, but if I was a Japanese or a Korean publisher of manhwa, you know what I would be looking at? I would be going to places like Bato and Mangadex, and I would be cataloging which series are getting the most engagement, and I would be selecting those for publishing, right? And I would be advertising that those were getting published into physical copies with media that goes along with it, right? Because in the case, like Legend, for example, does limited runs. Like sometimes what Legend does is they'll take like their most popular manga, right? And they'll do these limited publication runs where they'll publish like the books, not in a wide order, right? But they'll give like pre-orders to people who have bought chapters. And so maybe they'll only produce like 1,000 copies of the book, but you'll also get like a little standee and you'll get like a photo card and stuff. And it costs more than a traditional book, but they're always sold out and they're always incredibly popular. Right?
If I can provide a little pushback on that, just a little controlled opposition here, because I do largely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
What about the fact that a lot of publishers right now, physical books are at the core of my heart, core of your heart as well. They are not the most popular form to read anymore. It's digital products.
Provide a digital download.
But now when you're creating, say you create a digital storefront, those websites like Mangadex, Bato, they become competition.
Yeah, but in the same way that Mangadex and Bato were already technically competition for individual scanlation teams. So here's the thing. If you are just a casual enjoyer of things like Mangadex or Bato, you just read things and you see, oh, maybe you recognize the name of someone who's translating or scanlating something. But do you ever notice at the beginning or the end of the chapter, there are those pages that are inserted by the scanlation group that gives you like the screen names of the people who do the typesetting and the cleaning and the translation. And they always say, go to our Discord or go to our personal website, right? Or go to our Patreon, right? Do you see those? So Bato and MangaDex and all those kind of websites are already competing with individual scanlation groups, because those scanlation groups actually don't necessarily want their work on stuff like Bato because they don't get any profit off of their stuff being on Bato. Meanwhile, while they host it on Patreon or their own Discord or something, they actually might be able to like run it some sort of like donation Ko-Fi based profit model, right? So that's why a lot of scanlation groups will put out like posts where they're like, hey, don't put our stuff on Bato, you know, like that's in the same way, like everything that's published digitally is pirated to somewhere else, right? But there's a lot. I think what publishers need to consider is the amount of sales that you would lose, right, to your digital work being pirated, the same way that all digital work is pirated online. Is that really so big of a detractor that you cannot see the financial benefit to officially publishing your work digitally in a downloadable format, right? Because I think empirically you make more profit by just publishing your work, because a lot of people will just buy the official version if it is available. I need to take a bathroom break.
All right. I have a lot of stuff I want to bring up after you get back, because there's some interesting topics that I have as well regarding this.
Well, talk to chat.
Hey, chat. I can speak words. How you guys doing? I can pull you up on my phone so it's easier for me to take a look. Yeah, we're talking about manhwa translation, but don't worry. I've got ways of tying this back into video games and anime. This is coming, because I'm terminally online, so... Hiya, Frostshard. Yeah, I've seen that trend of like there's a push for AI, and it's fucked up. I hate it because there's simultaneously the experimentation of it with the official companies. Like you see, I know Crunchyroll's toying with it. I've seen official companies toying with it, and then you have the weird localization translation debate where it's like, for some reason people think they're going to get more accurate translations if they do it AI instead of localized, not realizing that the same people are control. I don't know. It's rough. It feels like we're going fast towards the loss of human translators, or we're not even losing them, because they have to keep someone around to pick the best translation of something, even if they're translating it through AI. We're just losing that skilled the more expert version of that. We're getting the what you stop needing them to actually know Japanese for that, and they can start playing with a vaguely mediocre translation that AI produces and adjusting that, instead of having to take what the translators are saying and adjust what a human would translate that to, based off of their experiences. I don't know. I think we're running into a bit of a crossroads here on AI. I really hope that the industry swerves, but it's looking bleak. Yeah, it's getting bad. Like, I don't think they realize if AI becomes commonplace, and this becomes the accepted way for them to translate works, what's stopping me from probably paying less to buy the original version digitally or physically, and scanning that in through an AI translator and just doing that myself? Like, you could probably produce a front end app for a cheap subscription to automatically translate things, and suddenly there's no market for translations unless they can get them out day and date. It's bad. I don't like where things are going. On that front, at least. FGO. What have I been up to, FGO, lately? Oh yeah, I finished all my free quests. Not all my... I'm still working on the rank ups, but I managed to finish the free quests today. So next I'm going to move into my, 50-some-odd rank ups. And then I'll move into my interludes once I have as many Bond 5 servants as possible. So, this is part of my quartz grind for anniversary. Yeah, anime using AI. What was it? Ascendance of a Bookworm's OP was caught using AI for the backgrounds of the OP. They reanimated it. Good on them, I guess, for going back and redoing it. But also, ugh, leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Now, supposedly, in fairness, the Bookworm OP was not done in-house. So they're claiming plausible deniability that they did not know that the company they had do the OP was using AI. But take of that what you will, in terms of that on that regard. You can believe them or you can't, but it's still like it feels like this wouldn't have been a problem for them if they didn't get caught. Like if they didn't get caught on this, they probably be like, yeah, no, nothing's wrong with that, even if they knew it. So, and the One Piece remake, that's only a rumor right now, to my knowledge, that the AI would be used. But I think I've seen them use vague terms in interviews that like can hint at AI. Like AI if it becomes industry accepted, but not if it doesn't. And it's like no one wants it to become industry accepted. Nobody. Well, I'm sure it's weird. They didn't. It wasn't when they announced it that they said they'd do that, but it's something. I saw when the rumors started going around that they were going to be doing it. It's weird that they're doing that. I have seen some pushback on this idea, like some defense of it, saying, "Well, this is work that the animators really didn't want to do in the first place. It's the kind of stuff that keeps them overworked." And honestly, that might be true in the current state of the animation industry. That the animators are being overworked, so AI would help them with that. But the solution's not AI. The solution is either pay them better to compensate for the more hours, or hire more animators to do more in between frames, so you don't have the same animators working themselves to the bone. It's fucked up. Anything but be better to the animators. Anything but that. Overwork them to death? Sure. AI, so that AI it to kill some of the creative integrity of it? Sure. Hire more animators or increase the pay? Pfft. That costs some money. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Seki's taking a while. Must be a good shit. Okay. Ooh. That hot chocolate we had is very spicy, by the way. Like, it's got a bite. It's not, like, unbearable. Like, I'm not dying drinking the spice. It's not clouding my nostril or clearing my sinuses at all. But you feel it going down. It's like, reminds me of eating good, like, good pineapple or something where it's like there's a bit of a burn. Mappa got their shit together for Jujutsu Kaisen's Culling Games art. I don't watch a lot of Mappa anime. I don't think. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Is Jujutsu Kaisen's animation kind of gone to shit lately? Oh yeah, this is going around the Discord. I think everyone I see in stream right now was in the Discord as well. But just a reminder, prototype fragments getting localized. Or the manga is. So buy it. show them we want more localized books. As soon as those pre-orders open, get those in, because we need every sale we can on those if we want to get bigger titles or more experimental light novels and such over here. That's why the problem is, they worked their animators bad. Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. Seki's back.
Hot take. So, I was thinking about this in the bathroom, as you do. Best place to organize your thoughts. So, companies like T.H.E report multiple billions of dollars a year in loss of revenue to piracy, right? Mm-hmm. But I would pose the question, how much more revenue could you generate if you actually published and made available all titles in your catalog readily and not just specific titles that you think will appeal the most in the West? Right? The vast majority of people who go to sites like Bato or MangaDex go for things that aren't available in the West, and then once you're there, you find other things recommended that are similar.
It becomes easier to like, okay, I'm already pirating this. I need to find this. That's one I might just not look at the official websites.
Yeah, because I'm not saying that, like, piracy is not good for the artists, right? Like, it is a loss of money for the creators, but in some cases, it's the only option, right? Sometimes I go back to this one example I have. I have this manga series and light novel series. It's from like 2002, right? One of my favorite series in the world, right? Like genuinely one of my favorite series in the world. It was like 72 chapters in the manga and it's something like 100 chapters of the light novel, right? It was published only by one company in one run in Taiwan, ever. It was never translated officially into English. It was never translated officially into even Japanese for release, right? So this series was basic, and it was not made available digitally even for Taiwanese citizens, right? It was either you got it while it was releasing and read it, or you bought the books when it came out, right? There was never any other official online release. And so for years and years and years, the only possible way to read it if you didn't have a copy of the books was to find a pirated copy online, right? Now, I think 4 or 5 years ago, somebody reached out to the original author and they asked if they would be allowed to publish a for free translation digitally online if they worked on it themselves. And I believe the author did give written permission for this person to set up a website and host different language translations of this novel and manga. But for 20 years, the only possible way to read this was piracy. There was no other option unless you lived in Taiwan and had bought the books during their original release run. So there are mangas and webtoons and manhwas that are published online on places and were translated on places like Bato and stuff that are nowhere else in the stratosphere, right? And old manga too, step away from manhwa webtoons, that's all new. So many old manga that are no longer in print or circulation were scanned in digitally and then painstakingly translated and made available on sites like Bato. These sort of mangas that will never be translated again. Maybe even one-offs that somebody wrote never got very popular. It would never make it to the Western world in a translation that they would actually sell, right? And so it's archived on a place like Bato or something, because it's technically still illegal because somebody like Shueisha has owned the rights for 60 years, but they don't publish it, right? Technically, that's lost media at this point.
So you want to hear about Nick Nack's Twitter adventures into copyright?
Oh, boy.
So 3 things kind of came up lately that off my memory, copyright-wise on Twitter. And this is all off the back of, by the way, I've talked to Seki about this. But
I'm such a massive fan of copyright, but in the most traditional way of copyright, in that you own your ideas, you know?
Well, I think that's put a pin in that. Put a pin in that. Because I think I actually have an explanation on some of this, I think. Just more of a hypothesis than anything. That I think might click with you pretty well. So, but setting this up here, Twitter released some analytics a while back, and it came out that the 2 biggest markets second is English. The highest amount of users on Twitter, probably because of the Elon Musk for the English side being lesser, but the highest amount of users is in Japan. Okay. And the Japan algorithms really looked similar to the English algorithms. So they decided, well, we have our Grok AI
them, right?
already auto-translating tweets. We're just going to merge the algorithms together and let these people go at it. And that has produced some fun results in terms of cross-cultural pollination.
I would assume also you'd run into issues with the AI translation also because like AI won't necessarily grasp things like similes and metaphors and stuff like that,
Yes.
or colloquialisms.
And that's a problem for fiction, but for just communication.
I don't know. It's like that's like if you say something like that's like putting lipstick on a pig. That phrase doesn't translate into every language around the world, and AI isn't necessarily going to understand how to translate that, right? That's why sometimes in my printed manhwa, or like when I'm reading manhwa online digitally, there's little notes about like, like, oh, this phrase sounds weird, but this is what it means in Korea, right? Or something like that.
It's allowed the facilitation of cross-cultural arguments, which, let's be real, Twitter working as function or as intended. But
I already know that's a bad idea.
But a few things have come out, and we'll get into those cross-cultural arguments in a second. The first one is more of a funny. This story I think you're going to find funny.
Mm-hmm.
There was a mangaka.
Oh no.
That was writing they were doing a small manga. Just them. Didn't take off crazy amount in Japan. It was never going to get an English release.
Mm-hmm.
This mangaka was bilingual. So he started producing his chapters on manga decks in English for international fans.
Yeah.
And not posting about it on the Japanese Twitter, but like trying to post it in the English side of things.
And when it merged, he
got caught.
Yeah.
He's still writing the manga, but he was basically told, I was told I had to stop this.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting space because, like, in theory, it is his intellectual property, but if it is being published through a publisher, that publisher does own distribution and translation rights, right? Like, typically those contracts cover distribution rights, printing rights, and typically translation rights are rolled into that, right? Because you only need to translate it if you're going to distribute it in a specific way, right? And so, like, to an extent, the issue there has nothing to do with copyright because it is his intellectual property. But he made the decision to sign a contract that states that it is not his property to do with what he wants at any situation, right?
That's sort of
so by publishing it into English, he is distributing it outside of contract, right? Whether or not he owns it is not the problem. It's the contract he signed with distribution rights.
But that starts pushing into the idea of, well, is copyright protection of the owner of the intellectual property? Or of the corporation that the guy had to go through to publish this in the first place?
Well, no, so here's the thing. That doesn't get into that argument at all. Copyright has nothing to do with this. It is his intellectual property, but he signed a contract. The contract has nothing to do with copyright. Once he signed the contract giving up distribution rights to whoever was publishing it, right? Then the publishing of his work is up to that company. He owns the work. They own the right to publish it.
Okay. You are legally 100% correct. But here's the thing. People saying copyright infringement in terms of fan translations, in terms of piracy, is illegal. They are also 100% correct. We're not talking an argument of legality here. We're talking an argument of, like, morally, who is the law protecting? What's going on here? And when you're talking about copyright now, it's kind of a prime example of the copyright's not protecting the guy. Because the guy, ultimately, all he wants is his work to be published.
Yeah.
And to be out in the world. And in terms of getting it officially published and be able to live off this, he had to go through a publisher.
Yeah.
And and he wants it to be available to as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. Who it's protecting is the corporation. Now, is that right? Is that wrong? That's its own debate. But it is not just a matter of is it legal or illegal, because all piracy is illegal.
Yeah, and I think you have to consider this here. I hate to be on the side of the corporation, right? But a corporation's investment into an author does constitute a significant amount of financial investment, right? Mm-hmm. They are investing staff into that author. They are investing time. They are investing magazine space. Like, they picked that author over someone else, right? Like, granted, these corporations are making a lot more money than the authors are, right? But every time that they invest into an author, it is a risk for them, and they are putting financial investment into the author, right? Now, if the author is really concerned about the publishing of his work into another language, that's something that you maybe need to bring up with your publisher, right? And a lot of publishers are not going to necessarily be very open to that conversation. And that's a systemic issue, but it's not a copyright issue, right?
Well, it is a copyright issue. I get that it doesn't feel like it's the same thing because in your mind, copyright protects the individual, but it's in most cases.
But the thing is, the publisher telling him not to publish his work in English onto a different site is not infringing on his copyright.
No, it's not infringing on his. It's not the publisher infringing on his.
Yeah. But technically, the thing is, the corporation doesn't own a copyright either. So he's not infringing. Here's the thing. He's not infringing on the publisher's copyright. He's infringing on the publisher's right to distribute. That's different.
I'm pretty sure the publisher does. So a lot of the manga publishers, it's similar to video game IP. It's like the company like One Piece is not owned by Oda. It's owned by Shueisha and Shonen Jump.
Well, they own the IP for production and distribution.
And that's what's protected is the IP. It's not like Oda's not protected at all by the copyright. It's Shueisha that is. If Oda broke from Shueisha and wanted to produce more One Piece, Shueisha still owns it. It's still Shueisha's intellectual property. So this is just a debate I want to be putting in your mind for what's coming up here.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, so do you know the story about how cross-media... Do you know about how cross-media copyright laws really came into being in the UK and the US?
I'm sure it's common law and like just lawsuits. Everything that comes like those kind of intricacies seems to come out of lawsuits and having.
So it actually goes back to pretty much a set of specific authors and one specific author in particular. So do you know the woman who wrote? Do you know the book The Little Garden?
Yes.
Yeah, it's very famous, right? You know the author who wrote it. So the author who wrote The Little Garden also wrote like a lot of other books. I think Little Prince something or Little Prince Fauntleroy, right? And at the time when she was writing, right, copyright protected the work that you wrote, right? But it didn't protect that work from, like, being turned into something else, right? So she, like, a friend wrote to her about Little Lord Fauntleroy had been made into a play, right? By some playwright, right? And by making it into a play, it had circumvented at the time the copyright because it wasn't a book being published, right? So it was perfectly free. And so she went and she was like, hey, you need to either credit me and give me like the earnings from this or you can't put on this play. And he said, well, no, that doesn't matter. I can still put on the play, right? And so what she ended up doing was she rented out like a nearby theater, put on her own play of Little Lord Fauntleroy, right? Completely putting his to shame and basically driving him out of business. And then he came asking, he was like, what if I give you like some of the profits? And she said no. And then she basically led the charge in the UK to completely change copyright laws to cover that work being taken and distributed.
And
right,
eventually
separately,
British common
right?
law
So that became
trickled down to the US.
So not even trickle down, the US actually just adopted those same copyright laws less than 2 years later.
The US pulls a lot of its common law from Britain.
Yeah.
But in that eventually...
It was not Disney's fault, Dohorio. No. This is actually like... So it's... I forgot the name of the author.
That is an active protection of the creator. Like, that's not...
Yeah.
But...
Because the argument that the person made at the time was that they had written the screenplay for Little Lord Fauntleroy, and while it was based on the book, it wasn't the book, right? So, like, copyright law used to be a lot looser and not as good for... like artists, right? And with that set of laws also included laws on paintings and art and all sorts of things that hadn't been protected previously.
Now,
right?
I opposed you on this mangaka in the corporation, not because I actively take the corporation side or not the mangaka side more here. Actually, if you had taken the side of the mangaka, I would have immediately started pushing back on the corporate side, just because I want you to be exercising that thought in your mind of who is copyright protecting.
I think the other thing is we're also talking about Japanese copyright law, which is very different than American copyright law.
Yes.
So in American copyright law, which is what I'm talking about, right? In America, this would not be a copyright issue. Him publishing his work, let's say it was an American author who published his work translated into Spanish online, right? Because his publisher didn't translate it into Spanish, right? In the US, this would not be an argument of copyright law. This would be a distribution contract breach. Right? Because he would still own the copyright, but it would be the contract that controls the distribution that would be up in court.
Depends.
Pretty much it would be.
No, because you could still, like, look at it this way. Moana is not owned by Lin-Manuel Miranda or anyone else involved in that film.
No.
It is owned by Disney.
Yes.
If they all separated, they could ship of Theseus it.
Yeah, but that's because Disney basically commissioned it.
But that's the same way that these manga are being done in Japan. In order to publish, they're basically giving their IP over to this publisher.
No, there's a difference between a movie being commissioned by a Lord's corporation and somebody writing a story and then shopping it to different publishers until someone opts for it. So think about book publishing, right? While technically, let's say you own a manuscript, right? Like you have this manuscript you wrote. That manuscript you can file a copyright for. That manuscript is your intellectual property, right? Now you can sell that manuscript to a big corporation. That's what most authors do. Doesn't change the fact that you own the manuscript, but they own it in a different way, right? So that's a lot of the way that book publishing works, right? Is that those corporations now own that book for editing and distribution, and they, depending on your contract, they might be the ones to make the arrangements for translation or for adaptions or for art and all that sort of stuff.
That is right now pretty much exclusive to physical book publishing and only novel publishing. Because look at Marvel Comics. Same way, and this is before Disney's involvement. They basically, like, you could shop around your idea to different companies, but if they, for Marvel to even agree to publish it, yeah, that IP is ours. And this became a huge controversy. There's a lot of court cases about this, because a lot of people are like, well, I want to own my IP, but to get it published, you had to go through these companies. So it's really how the company sets their contract, and for a lot of spaces, most spaces I would even say, unless it's like a very haphazard like publishing initiative, they tend to want full control over the IP when you're shopping around your creative.
Yeah,
ideas.
but to a certain extent, there's also a legal difference between an IP and a story, right? So there is the Iron Man IP, right? Marvel owns the Iron Man IP, right? They own Iron Man, his image, and sort of all the associated stuff, right? That does not change the fact, though, that if someone were to, with their permission, write an Iron Man story, they likely could file a copyright for their specific written story, right? Like the specific story elements of that specific thing, and it's a separate type of copyright, right? So it works together.
I'm not solely convinced that would be the case. Marvel would.
Well, Marvel wouldn't allow it, but
Yeah.
but that's a court case you would have to fight. In theory, you could technically have that split of while you own the greater IP, this person does own the story that they have written, right? Because the story is more than just the image of the character inside of it, right? It's the writing, the tropes, the actual everything else.
It's rare in a lot of industries that you even have that leeway. There is one example in comics, though, and I don't want to get too deep into this because this is like its own deep dive for its own day. If you ever wanted to go through, I could send you a good video essay if you wanted to. There is an infamous instance in comics where a publisher lost its paperwork and basically lost their entire comic story because the author was kind of a dickhead.
Well,
Sonic, actually. But that's its own...
yeah.
Like, that's... People have made feature-length video essays about that entire court scandal.
Yeah.
But I do want to keep moving a little bit here with the topic.
Yeah, because Japanese publishing and Japanese copyright are very different than American publishing and copyright.
It is, but that one aspect of who owns the control, it really is down to what the publisher manages to get out of the author at negotiation, and more often than not, outside of paper novels, it's the full IP.
Yeah, well, and in a lot of cases, especially with authors who aren't super famous, right? The more popular your work is, the more leeway you have in any new contract you enter.
Like Stephen King probably owns most of his IP.
Yeah.
Even if he has a publisher.
Yeah, but like, there are other ways you kind of...
But Joe Schmo publishing his first novel or trying to break into an industry, he's not going to own his IP. But here we're going to shift away from that a little bit for another fun Japanese kerfuffle in that exchange. We're not getting to Nier yet. I saw someone bring that up. We will get there. Evangelion. Did you hear about this?
No.
Basically,
just presume I know nothing about any of this, because remember, we are not in the same online spaces.
Yes. So what happened here was Evangelion, I think it was as an anniversary project, had a limited screening in Tokyo of a sequel movie that they said was only for that screening. They were never going to publish it anywhere. It was an exclusive thing to dedicated fans.
Okay.
English-speaking audiences with no ability to go to that event and who wanted to see these, like, post the original story, lives of these characters were like, fuck you!
Mm-hmm.
And they started publishing cam rips of that, because a few people did get in.
Mm-hmm.
And they started fan subbing it. Evangelion, I can't remember what studio owns it right now, but the studio basically came in and said, no copyright infringement, which it's in their rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When they sent the cease and desist, they accidentally also sent a full HD copy of the entire video. And very quickly, that ended up widespread. In the same way of the Avatar Aang movie.
Yeah,
online.
well, I think obviously Japanese courts in this case will side with the publisher.
Yes.
But I think if you were to take that to an American court, right, 90% of American courts would probably rule that while the fan rips are in fact an infringement of copyright, the company itself, even by accident, did release that copy of the video, and ergo that video cannot be prosecuted.
Well, it can't be prosecuted as far as having a copy of it. Like, they can't go and delete it from the computers,
like
but distribution of it is still
distribution
illegal.
Would still
like, the piracy sites uploading this HD rip is still illegal.
Yeah,
but now it's suddenly a lot more widespread.
You know what this reminds me of in the Western world? So, remember when Hamilton came out and it was everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. But Hamilton didn't get a filmed version for a really long time. Yeah. So for a really long time, your only options were to just listen to the soundtrack disconnected from visuals or find a camera rip online. And let me tell you, almost getting a virus on my computer from having a video called Founding Fathers Get Naughty in the Bedroom Part 2, which was a 1080p third row camera rip of the entire musical.
That's how a lot of Hamilton's fans saw it for the first time. They sure as hell didn't get to Broadway, and they sure and the Disney Plus
didn't come out till years after.
That's when I first watched it.
Yeah.
But it is in that same ballpark of like, people want to watch this shit. They're gonna find ways.
Yeah. Like I said, I remember being on Pornhub looking at Founding Fathers Get Naughty in the Bedroom.
But
and it was just Hamilton.
But this is where things start to get interesting. English fans, similar to us right now, see this entire thing happening like, oh my god, the studio is stupid.
Yeah.
This is great for digital preservation.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call the studio stupid. Like, that's obviously a clerical error that has happened somewhere along a chain of, like, emails and such.
Oh,
right?
yeah, but...
And to a certain extent, I understand clerical errors. It's a funny clerical error.
This is, like, on the level of... the internet was... Twitter was on the level of when they gaslit Sony into re-releasing Morbius. This is how, like...
Exactly.
Dogged on the studio got
yeah.
this. But by this point, the cultural exchange had started.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who wasn't very happy about English fans getting this supposed-to-be exclusive experience?
Japanese.
The Japanese fans.
Here's the thing. People like exclusive experiences. You like to feel like you got something special. And if you paid a lot of money and rearranged your schedule to go do something special, you want to keep that thing special to a certain extent. I kind of understand this because if I paid like a lot of money for an exclusive experience and then it turned out that exclusive experience was not so exclusive, I too would be a little upset. Now, granted, if it had just been like fan cam rips, right, then I can be mad at the people who did it and not the company, right? I'd just be righteously angry and be like, people are being dicks about this, right? Now, the company sending the video out, that's where I start getting a little...
But basically, there's sort of something fun happened here, though. You start seeing this cultural exchange of Japanese people suddenly realizing Americans and people in the West are really celebrating this blatant copyright infringement, and American people realizing, wow, these Japanese people are really quick to lick the boot of the corporation here when we can't even get access to this in the first place.
Well, I would make a rather, I think, strong and yet not incorrect comment here that Americans are very anti-corporation.
Yeah, that's what's coming out about this.
Yeah, and to be fair, if you look at the history of industrialism and union busting and the history of corporations in America, we have a very good fucking reason to be anti-corporation.
Now
think about company towns.
Think about the well-known Japanese relation to companies.
Yeah,
sometimes
it's very different.
with like you get social commentary out of this. It's like you working for a company. In theory, like you should be dedicating yourself to making this company succeed.
Meanwhile, one of the most famous memes about working for a company in the U.S. is "Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I shit on company time."
So you have this situation where this perception of we're not hurting the individual here because the individuals aren't profiting a dime
You're hurting
off
the
of us.
corporation, but the Japanese perception of loyalty to the corporation.
You're hurting the
working
corporation,
for.
which is hurting the individual.
Yeah.
This happened again last week. Well, not quite. It's not nearly as dog on the corporation, like in terms of they made a fuck up here. But this exchange happened again last week. Because a big online, I think it was a gacha game, but it was an online mobile game in the Nier series, Nier Incarnation, got shut down.
Okay.
And so the Western fans, because we have a big sense of digital preservation in the West, they created a fan server of the game.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And the Japanese fans were not happy about that. And suddenly, this copyright debate becomes once again like, oh, this is a huge cultural divide, actually.
Okay, so I feel like this is going to be the wildest fucking comparison here, but a great way to look at the general like lack of respect and sort of like value of game preservation and sort of like fuck you to corporations that's kind of endemic of the American experience, right, when it comes to corporations and gaming and stuff like that. The best game to look at an example of this on is actually Club Penguin. Like, it is genuinely Club Penguin.
Okay, Dohawario, you are right. Yoko Taro gave his sort of blessing to it, but also Yoko Taro is an unusually based Japanese man, let me just say.
Yeah, but, you know, back to the semi-comparison here. Club Penguin, right? So, obviously, Club Penguin got shut down, right? And immediately what people started doing was fan servers, right? And for a long time, everything was fine with the fan servers, and then Disney started suing everyone over fan servers, right? But it's like, the game isn't even up anymore, right? It's that Americans, we as a people, are very irreverent towards corporations, right? And we value the preservation of media, access to media, and the common man more than we would ever value a corporation, right? Like we value individual experiences and the ability to share those experiences far, far more than we value respect to most corporations.
You want another fun wrinkle to this,
right?
It's also kind of coming out that there's a lot more respect for limited time experiences in Japan than there is in the U.S. And this has got a fun little bit of an aside to it, because think about how common it is in Japan for like these little limited time collaboration cafes.
Pop-up. Yeah. Like, I know the culture.
Even in the Fate fandom, there's similar to the
hotel things. But believe me, I get the culture. The pop-up like limited time experiences. Yeah, I get it.
People in the West kind of hate that kind of shit.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because, like, I absolutely see, like, the value of these limited time collaborations, right? Like, it's one of those kind of things where I look at it and I'm like, that's really cool. And the ability to put on these limited time collaborations is a way for people to at least have a possible opportunity to experience this thing that is not a normal everyday thing, right? Like, Fate does not have cafes all over Japan that run 24/7, right? Like, that's just not a thing. But, you know, every, like, once a year or so, you put on a little cafe, and if fans know that it's coming, you can try to save and plan and organize your schedule and stuff. Like, to a certain extent, I really appreciate limited time experiences like that, right? I actually think that they're a great way for brands to do things that you cannot do on a more general scale, right? But at the same time, that doesn't work in the U.S. And I know it doesn't work in the U.S.
It kind of works for us because we're close enough to enough.
Well, it works because we live in California.
But like, if you're anywhere other than like in a metropolitan hub or near enough to one.
No, this basically only works in two places in the U.S.
Yeah.
California and New York.
Yep.
Those are the only two places that limited time collaborations like this work.
So you want the final wrinkle to this?
Mm-hmm.
So
because I'm going to bring up something to do with One Piece in the U.S. in a second.
This is obviously getting a little bit pseudo-intellectual because there are no hard studies on this right now, or that we are aware of or that we've looked into. But some of the data is showing Japan actually has a higher rate of copyright infringement than the US does, and piracy is even more rampant in Japan. So now that begs the question, why does it seem like there's this cultural divide? Were we just wrong this entire time? Why does it seem like there is this huge push for these limited experiences?
I have a theory, but you go first.
The theory I've been seeing around online, one of the most populated cities in the world, and this is why limited experiences are so common in Japan. Tokyo.
Yep.
A lot of this is Tokyo.
Yep.
When you actually go out of Tokyo, people were finding that there were actual arguments within Japanese online spaces that seem to have a geographic line to it.
Yep.
So if you're
Major
Tokyo and you have
metropolitan
access
areas.
to a lot of even physical media more accessible in Tokyo, because a lot of used shops for that kind of stuff. And then obviously limited experiences. So this is an argument that's already occurring in Japan that's metropolitan versus urban.
Yeah.
This is like the gun debate in the US almost.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is, I think, and this is once again a learned cultural thing, but the vast majority of corporations in the US know better than to do something like a limited time experience outside of literally LA, San Francisco, and New York, right? And the vast majority of corporations know not to do limited experiences outside of those places because you're going to get more hate for the people's lack of ability to go there than you will love for the people who could go there, right? Because the problem is, while those are large metropolitan areas, right, and in LA, obviously you've got millions of people and you're going to have a really good attendance, but it's going to be so public and there's so many people in the rest of the country that don't have access to it, and they're going to be very vocal online. And it's a perfect example of the vocal minority, because it might be a few thousand people, but if a few thousand people start dunking on your brand aggressively, and maybe 1,000 people went to your event, and most of those people aren't going to post about it actively.
In the US, with limited
Right.
time things like trailers that won't release to the general public, or cafes even, like little limited time food things, the general consensus seems to be it has to be something just enough to make people that can make it feel rewarded, but people who can't not feel like they've lost that much.
Well, like, I think there's a kind of a good example here. So One Piece did a collaboration with Popeyes, I think, just recently.
Yes.
Yeah, so they did the One Piece meal, right? And one of the big things about the collaboration was this really cool hard shell bento box. Well, come to find out, the really cool hard shell bento box is only available in like a dozen locations across the whole country. And it's an extremely limited supply. So the vast majority of people are just going to get a Popeyes box with the food inside of it that's from the collaboration. But it's kind of just the same food that they're already serving, and people are pissed about it online, right? This is kind of like the Rick and Morty sauce. Remember that?
Sauce?
Like, the thing is, in the US, right? Like, when we see limited experience, if it's not actually accessible, right? We will riot so hard as a vocal population that the company will regret not making it an accessible experience.
Well, there's a large amount of places that aren't near these metropolitan areas in the US.
Yeah. Whereas in Japan, your vocal majority is in Tokyo, and you're going to see a lot of people posting about all these things that they get to go to, and you're going to hear a lot more from Tokyo, which is a kind of an international metropolitan hub. So even online, you're going to hear more from Tokyo, right? It's very funny because, like, I totally understand the same argument going on in Japan, but just being harder to hear in some ways because of the way that Japan is laid out. I think Japan is so much smaller than the US, and not to say it's like a tiny country, right? I mean, it is a small country, but it's not like teeny tiny. But Tokyo is so overpopulated compared to the rest of Japan, right? Isn't Tokyo like the largest metropolitan in the world by population?
Yes.
I think Tokyo...
it was. It's not anymore.
Not anymore, but it was for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, even in the US, we have major metropolitans like New York or LA, but we actually have a pretty big population spread across other areas, you know? And it's such a big country.
So, of course, knowing all this and knowing what you were about to get into in Debato, I started kind of poking around, like, okay, so what is Korea's perceptions on copyright? And to my understanding, what surprised me,
Yeah.
Korean copyright was, at least in this academic article I found from about 20 years ago, wasn't as stringent as U.S. copyright was.
No, it's not. It depends on the space that you're in. In terms of books, it's not, and a lot of the reason why it's not as stringent as Japan or the US is because actually up until about the last 10 to 15 years, Korea has not been a massive literary producer. Like, South Korea produces literature, but not at the same rate as, say, Japan or the US does. And it's only kind of in the webtoon age that they've really ramped up production to like this massive scale. But so the way that the other thing is the way that most manhwa and webtoons get published in Korea is not the same as in Japan or the US. So in Japan or the US, typically what happens is you shop your story to a publisher, right? And then the publisher will opt it for like a weekly release or a full book release. That's not actually what happens in Korea. So in Korea, the vast majority of manhwa and webtoons are actually published on places like KakaoTalk and Highline and stuff, right? And typically what that starts as actually just the author typically publishing either the novel version or a very basic version of the webtoon, right? Like they publish the first couple of chapters and then they kind of like keep publishing in the hopes that a bigger group will see them and then pick up their work, right? And then they'll get more support and funding, right? But like a lot of the Korean publishing is initially self-driven. Like what they essentially do is rather than writing a chapter and then shopping it out to like various like production companies like you do in Japan, right? Like so you write a manga chapter, you give an idea for a book and then you shop it to all the different publishing companies. In Korea, traditionally you would publish it on KakaoTalk, right? Or something like that, or WeChat or whatever social media site, and then you wait to see the upvotes and the fan numbers and the comments and the popularity like increase and trickle in, and after it's met like a certain threshold that like a company is confident in it, then they'll opt and pick it up and continue it, right? In that they'll be like, hey, we want to officially publish this now, and we will give you these like resources like cleaners and typesetters to help you, and you have to do less work now, right? Or in the case of novels, right? Like you publish your novel and, maybe you publish your whole novel, right? And it's gotten really, really popular. And then a company comes to you and goes, hey, we see how popular your novel is. We'd love to make a webtoon adaptation. We have a team with a couple of artists. How do you like their art? Can we work with you to get your work published? So it's an incredibly different publishing space.
It's a completely different culture.
Yeah,
like
totally different.
And this is where it comes in. Like the corporation taking over was more a matter of contract than of IP copyright holder.
Yeah.
And you really can't take away the fact that this person is kind of needed to create this particular product.
Which is, I will say, the downside of this. This is why you get like 50,000 villainess novels all coming out of Korea at the same time, because one or two hit it really big, and then everyone was like, ooh, that'll be popular, and so they keep writing them, but there's only so much variation you can create, as Nick Nack has experienced, and he has read barely a fraction of what I've read.
Well, I'm glad you went into that, because one of the possible theories that this article was talking about was the possibility that culturally, copyright infringement was seen less as a crime against, it's not really as understood the same, because it's not felt as much that the authors are the ones suffering from the copyright infringement. It's the corporation that has to manage that and based on their contracts.
Yeah, because at least in Korea, the corporation, like the author themselves, once they've signed the contract, is getting paid one way or another.
Yeah.
The corporation assumes the risk over copyright and publishing. Like, the author's story's already out there. They're done. They've done their part. Like, they have their contract. They get paid a certain amount. The corporation assumes all the responsibility from there on.
It's a very different dynamic than the Japanese dynamic of the people that are in this corporation or working with this corporation are working in lockstep with them.
Yeah, the Bakuman example, basically. Yeah.
But that kind of... This is sort of my hypothesis, not a thesis, because this is certainly not well enough research to be a thesis.
Zero.
I think perceptions on copyright across the international borders really comes down to how we perceive that the relation of copyright to the individual versus the corporate. Like, who do we feel like we are harming, and how bad do we think it is that we're harming them? Think about in the U.S., think about how often we laugh at those ads that say, copyright infringement and piracy is not a victimless crime. We roll our eyes when we see that.
Yeah.
Because we kind of feel like we're hitting the corporation. The corporation's not a real victim.
Yeah, look, I'm not hurting an author if their work has never been published into English and I'm reading it online on a piracy site.
Yeah.
I am hurting an author if I choose to read their work on a piracy site and never buy a copy of the book or the movie or whatever it is that I liked, right? If that is not available to me, I am therefore not hurting it. I am only hurting the individual author if there is a way for me to support the author legally that I am choosing not to do, right? I'm not hurting the author if there isn't a way for me to support the author.
So I actually found a tweet from someone in Japan who was kind of looking at this with in a bilingual lens.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, I've been watching this entire thing. I came to two conclusions here. The first conclusion is that we as the Japanese people need to sort of be more critical about our relationship with our corporate interests.
That, even outside of the copyright issue, not to judge someone else's culture because that's not right? But Japanese work culture is not statistically healthy. Like in terms of like actual human welfare and mental health, statistically, provably is not positive. I'm not saying the US has a healthy work culture, but Japan definitely doesn't.
And then their second conclusion, and this is the English side conclusion, a lot of Americans are antisocial weirdos who are very, very what was the word? Feel like you deserve everything.
Oh, yeah.
Entitled
yeah.
antisocial weirdos.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, because like I understand missing limited like events and stuff like that. Like I understand that, but I think a lot of the reason that I understand that is because I have like more experience thinking about limited events in other places around the world, right? Like I know I have American friends who don't really see limited events as like a valid thing to do, right? So,
but there's a lot of sense of I deserve in the Western world. I deserve this media because it exists.
Yeah, and I mean, like, to a certain extent, like, I get it, but also, like, I want to read good books, and it's not my fault that the book wasn't published, and the thing is, it's not my fault that the book wasn't published into English, especially if it's old, right? Like, the author has no way of knowing that it might be popular 30 years later in the U.S., right?
That's not necessarily who they're going after. They're going more after the people like, yes, I know this. I could go buy this manga from my local bookstore right now and support publishing initiatives, but I deserve to read it because what fucks over the corporation is always better for me.
The irony of all ironies, I think I straddle an interesting middle point here where I will be because in my mind, yes, I'm supporting the corporation, but in the U.S., by supporting a corporation that is publishing manga, I'm also statistically demonstrating that there is a market for this thing, and I want more things to be brought up. Like, I think the reason why I'm so willing to pay for stuff like that is because when I think about it, I'm thinking about it on a for the good of for the greater good scale, right? Is I'm thinking about it in the way of, yeah, I could just read The Lady and Her Butler online anytime I want to, but I think that The Lady and Her Butler is a good enough webtoon that I would really like other people to be able to experience this, and because it's been removed from every single legal site to be published in paper, I think you should read the paper. I think you should buy at least a volume or two of the paper copy to show that there is a market for it, so that these corporations will understand that they need to keep publishing, right?
Don't worry. Yes, you're 100% right. A large part of this debate's also fueled by the fact that
The
Twitter
vocal
is the
minority.
website of vocal, annoying, entitled, antisocial weirdos, regardless of culture.
And arguably, it is statistically a vocal minority for any issue, right? It's never the majority. Like, it's not the majority of anime fans. It's just a very vocal minority. And offensive and loud voices get more attention in media than quiet, supportive ones do.
Yep.
Right? So, it's just one of those things, where you're kind of like, or like, for example, I don't feel bad reading Get Backers, the manga, online, right? Because Get Backers, the manga, has not been in published circulation since the original Tokyo Pop went under in like 2004, right? I have like 20-ish volumes of it sitting up there that I've scavenged from like used bookstores. Not all of the volumes, even in the first 21. I think I've got like 16 or 17 volumes there total. I'm missing a few. So I don't feel bad purchasing a copy, or I don't feel bad reading Get Backers online because it's not in print. Same thing with the Prince of Tennis. Prince of Tennis is no longer in print circulation, right? Or I read Fruits Basket pirated when I originally read it, because when I first read Fruits Basket was not in publication. But look at what I did once it was in publication.
But let's loop.
I own every volume of the Fruits Basket manga.
Let's loop this back around a little bit even further to some conversations that you didn't think were part of this conversation at all. Oh boy. Back to Nintendo. Nobody gives a shit in the West if you pirate any of those games in that box there.
Oh. Yeah.
But now apply that entire difference in views on copyright and limitations and limited time access to Nintendo as a Japanese video game publisher. And suddenly you start seeing, this is why this is a problem in terms of why Nintendo is so nasty about this, and why, yes, we should be communicating that this is not how Japanese companies can be interacting with the West in terms of being draconian about their copyright.
Yeah.
And that they need to be making these things more accessible. But also, it gives you better understanding of why the issue is an issue.
Yeah. I can see the cultural divide that's happening. I'm
not saying you have to like Nintendo for, or like anybody involved for this. But understanding it lets it be the conversation be a bit more productive.
A bit more. I still think that Nintendo goes about copyright wrong, but I think a lot of the issues on an international scale with Nintendo and their copyright policies is entirely due to a cultural divide where they are more focused on the Japanese market, and they're not really understanding or they're not necessarily caring to understand for their internet. I don't think that it's not that they don't know what's happening in the international market. It's that right now they don't actually need to care in terms of profitability.
I watched a really good Nintendo podcast today that said it best. Nintendo is about 10 years behind in terms of working on, in terms of the American markets, Nintendo's about 10 years behind on everything. They've only more recently been very open about YouTube. Minecraft was very open about YouTube pretty much from the game's inception. Mods are commonplace. Minecraft, Bethesda, a lot of games, Baldur's Gate, they launch with mod launchers so that they can allow for these fan customizations. Nintendo hates game modding. So, but a lot of that is also a more recent gaming phenomenon in the last generation or two.
Yeah, I mean, older games got modded, but it was much harder and less popular and that sort of thing. And I think I'm actually going to make the argument here. I don't think that you should put sandbox games like Minecraft into the same space as like a Baldur's Gate opening up modding, right? Because something like Baldur's Gate or Witcher 3 allowing for mods, right, is very different than a sandbox game, right? The whole point of games like Minecraft is that yeah, the base game has been created, but the base game was never intended to lock people out of modding and changing and doing exactly what they wanted, right? Sandbox games are built on the predication that your appeal to a long-term player base is your long-term player base's ability to treat it like a sandbox, right? And if that means modding it, let them mod it. Do not be upset with them wanting to mod it.
But Skyrim,
right?
for example, is not a sandbox game. That is an open world RPG.
Yeah.
It's a big RPG game, and it's been pretty progressive on mod support. Like, for all Bethesda's faults, they're progressive on mod support.
Skyrim, Witcher 3 is massive on, like, mods. And Witcher 3 has a massive community, not necessarily for artistic mods, but for whole new story chapters being added. Like, the amount of whole new quests. And those quests are, like, actively embraced by, like, you know, the company and stuff. They're not like, hey, go play this new chapter that somebody's released, but they're not getting mad at people creating whole new game chapters.
On the other end, if you want a Japanese company that's become more that's pretty supportive of this kind of thing, Sega's a Japanese company that moved its base of operations primarily westward, although they still have Japanese branches. Mm-hmm. The Sonic franchise, they have a thriving fan game community that Sega is both aware of and has even pulled talent from for their games before, although they've rubbed up against each other in more recent years once in a while. But even still, Capcom has done this as well. Mm-hmm. This is not something that Japanese companies can't learn. Mm-hmm. Nintendo is just, because it's so big.
They haven't needed to yet.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is Nintendo hasn't hit that point where their refusal is going to cause them to take on more water and sink. They're still at the point where they can safely float with the amount of water that's flooding, right?
But also,
and pump it out as it goes.
And this is something on the Nintendo side. Part of that is because Nintendo's very... You know how there's that Japanese idea that you work for the company, you stay there for life?
Yeah.
Nintendo's like the healthiest example of that. Like, they treat their employees well. Like, their CEO took a pay cut while Nintendo was doing at its worst.
Yeah.
And a huge effect of that is people do stay there a long time, which also means you know what happens when you have a lot of people staying there their entire careers.
Things don't change very fast.
Yeah, you have older people at the top for longer. And you're seeing more younger talent now getting more control over the franchises, but this is a very slow process with Nintendo in terms of learning these new industry trends.
It's understandable, right? Like, it's 100% understandable, but there will come a reckoning. It's taking a while to get to that reckoning because of the general profitability and the fact that they're not really losing too much, like, by being the way that they are, but they will at a certain point hit a point of equilibrium.
I disagree that there'll be a reckoning just because the older talent is aging out. And as you get younger talent in, they're still going to be behind, but you're never going to run up against a point where they're so far behind it's damaging. You're going to run up against a point where they're behind, but they're not healthily behind.
No, but even new talent coming in is a form of a reckoning. A reckoning doesn't have to be some sort of like shipwreck that changes the entire way that the company works. A reckoning can be as simple as all of the old guard finally leaving and an entirely like new, younger set of people coming in and just making legitimate changes that the company is okay with. Mm-hmm. That is its own form of reckoning. Reckoning does not have to define some sort of like company-wide massive change. You know?
Yep.
So a point of reckoning will be reached, whether it is the turnover of the old guard and a little bit more openness, or some sort of like greater grand thing. But it's gonna come.
I guess reckoning to me just is a little bit more of a loaded term.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of it more catastrophically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's more of like there's always going to be a turning point. Is probably.
Yeah. That is like one of the reasons why I think you can't include stuff like sandbox games into like when you talk about games that are like A-okay with modding. Is like when I think about like Minecraft especially, right? You think about stuff like the Nembomb, the Nembomb Ender has been the Ender design for like 17 years now, and I think Nembomb now works for Mojang.
Yep.
And, like, they created that when they didn't work for Mojang, and it's still actively the same design working.
The guy that did the Aether works for Mojang.
Yeah, so, you know, Mojang has always been incredibly player driven, right? Not in terms of like players aren't dictating exactly what's happening with the game, but players are a large part of the sort of the ongoing community involvement in Minecraft, right? Like Minecraft is for its longevity, not its complicatedness, you know? Minecraft is not a Baldur's Gate 3. It's not a cinematic masterpiece, but it is so much more versatile than Baldur's Gate 3 could ever be. I love Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3 provides a mere fraction of the playability of Minecraft. So it doesn't really matter if Mojang allows people to mod their game, because at the end of the day, they're still playing their game and they're still coming back to it, and that's
What's funny
still.
is the Mojang mod launcher is a relatively new phenomenon. For the longest time, you still had to back end it, whereas I think Skyrim adopted the mod launcher before Mojang and Minecraft did.
Yeah, but it wasn't really necessarily a problem for people to back
No,
end
it
Minecraft.
wasn't. It was not a problem.
It's just, they didn't really need a fancy launcher because the game itself wasn't that far off just being able
It's
to
Java.
fix stuff.
It's Java. If you want to learn Java, a monkey could code it.
Yeah. Whereas, Baldur's Gate 3, you're going to struggle a little bit more making mods for that. But yeah, I don't know. I
hope that was a fun conversation, though. Like, I hope I brought a good amount of stuff to that.
Well, it's something that... So, if you'd do me a favor,
yeah.
If you go down to your left, the...
You're not going to make me go into an encyclopedia, right?
No. You see where, on that bottom shelf, where, like, the collection of, like, random books is?
Minecraft?
Go to the left and the manga exhibit book from the exhibit that I still haven't published a video on that I should have on the channel, like, 2 months ago.
This it?
Yeah, grab that one. So I was reading through this, and the vast majority... So, we went to this exhibit, by the way. I'll try to get that video out at some point.
It includes my travelogue to Japan.
It does. But we went to this exhibit. It was hosted in San Francisco. But one of the things that I was looking in this book as I was reading that I didn't realize it was going to include a bunch of information on, right? So this includes what they call the manga timeline, right? Events in Japanese history and related to Japanese media, right? So there's a pretty extensive timeline of like manga stuff and notes and a glossary. But it includes something else. I gotta see if I can find it. Maybe it's at the front. It might have been in the dedication. Let's see. Yeah, so I think you go to... Because I was somewhere in this book, they brought someone in to do like an academic article, basically, about manga. Oh, here it is. Yeah, so they talk about the profitability of the global manga print market and the Japanese domestic industry and the US industry, right? And then they also talk about like the amount of money that's lost through piracy, right? On any given year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so funny because they talk about like the amount of revenue lost, right? But they don't talk about like the lack of translation and availability. And I was like looking, and I was reading through it. I was like, that's such an interesting tack to take. Like, I understand why they took this because it's an exhibition of the art of manga, but it was such a one-sided argument presentation, right? All about the industry, and this is what the industry is valued at, but this is how much they lose every year from piracy, completely ignoring how much they leave on the table by not making things available.
It's a one-sided medium. It's a book put out by the industry. It was never going to be like even a debate to the level that we kind of had today. Mm-hmm. Honestly, speaking of the debate today, I did not expect to be the one taking the creative side or the consumer side as often as I did compared to you.
Look, here's the thing. I love and support artists on their own, but law is the law in a lot of ways, and like while in my heart and soul I want to support the artist, I also know that like legally you signed a contract. I'm sorry, you made the choice to sign that contract. If you really cared about your work's distribution in different languages, you should have negotiated that into your contract, or left an opt-in to negotiate later, or discussed it with someone, like, you knew you were breaking contract. And this is going to be such a horrible, I hate that I feel this way, but contract is king. You signed a contract. The contract dictates what each person's responsibilities in a given business situation are.
Oh, I agree.
If we don't respect contracts, then we have no active way to police corporations and such. Like, contracts are our weapons against them. So when you sign a contract, read your fucking contract. Tell them what you want in it. If they will not include all the things that you want out of a contract, then you need to really think to yourself, are you okay with nothing ever happening outside of what is specified in this contract, or are you willing to hold out for a better contract? And sometimes you're just gonna have to make the hard decision and say, no, I can't wait, and I will just have to live with that. It's terrible, but it is...
I 100% agree. Like, I was prepared to offer controlled opposition no matter what you said, because you know me, I'm an argumentative asshole. But now I'm probably closer to you on this stance, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm for the artist, but a contract is a contract.
This isn't the consumer operating in a legal gray. This guy was pretty blatant. Like, he's lucky that the company didn't come down on him harder.
Yeah, and to a certain extent also, like, this doesn't extend to, like, coercive contracts or unfair contracts, right? Like, if you're tricked into signing something, then that is an issue that needs to be litigated on its own separately, right? Like, not all contracts are fair, and some people need to litigate over their contract fairness if it is possible. But if you have negotiating power and you have certain things you desire, you need to speak up for yourself. You need to decide whether or not you're going to die on that hill. And if you are, die on that fucking hill.
I just think it's funny.
Because I'm definitely not the person you expected to be on this hill.
No, normally it's the reverse where you're the one like, fuck the corporation, and I'm the one like, well...
Yeah.
Leave the $50 billion corporation alone.
Yeah. And I'm over here like, well, the $50 billion corporation has legal protection in this case. Legally, you did do something wrong.
Yeah, normally you're the one that's on the opposite end of that.
The predication here, though, is that... obviously, though, intellectually, I expect... obviously, this is an individual breaking a contract against a corporation, right? So you litigate against the individual. Going the other way, I would support the individual if a corporation broke a contract, right? Is that it's a quid pro quo, right? The idea is if you respect a contract, other people will respect your contracts, right? And that's not always the case. That is by far the issue that happens with a lot of people, is that corporations find it very easy to break or get around contracts, right? And I think that's a fucking awful thing to have happen, and that's something that I would fight against.
Well, Dohawario, yeah, that's the point of opposition, the controlled point of opposition I gave earlier. That the creative had a lot less leverage in getting these contracts. He probably only had the option of signing a contract like this. But
once again, then you have to make the decision. You have to think to yourself, are you okay with this option, right? Because the thing about especially Japanese publishing, right? Okay, so you start getting published, you get popular. Once you're more popular, you will have more negotiating power with future series, right? We've seen that with other authors, right? You blow up big on a series like I don't know, Fairy Tale's author, right? Fairy Tale's author wrote Rave Master. Rave Master was massively popular, right? That meant that when he wrote the start of Fairy Tale, a lot more people were willing to look at Fairy Tale, and a lot more people were willing to say, well, we want your next big thing. We don't want you to go to a different company. So what can we offer you, right? I don't know what or if the author negotiated different from their contract with Rave Master, but I can almost guarantee you they did, No,
I think at the end of the day, this is the system he opted into. This is the system that is in place. We can have an entire debate on whether or not the system is good or not.
No, the system's broken as fuck.
But it is what it is.
But the system is the only legal protection for both parties, and if you want to be able to respect the individual, you also have to be willing to respect the corporation in that aspect.
I don't bootlick much.
I'm sorry. I hate it. I hate that I have to say these words. I really do. You know what? We were having a discussion about Lord of the Rings earlier. I could bring Lord of the Rings into this. I absolutely respect Tolkien Estates' owning of the Lord of the Rings IP in film media and choice not to make any more media, right? I think it's stupid. I think their reaction to the movies is asinine. I think they're ignoring the fact that the movies are possibly the greatest thing that's ever been created about Lord of the Rings in the past 50 years, right? I think without the movies from the 2000s, Lord of the Rings would not nearly be as massively popular and revenue generating as it is today. And I think that the estate is being asinine about their control over the movie rights and such. But they have control over the rights, and I'm not gonna...
I mean, legally you're right, but also I don't have respect for that for one reason. Because if Disney hadn't fucked over the U.S. copyright system, they would not have control over that at this point.
Well, that's a separate...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Disney's the alteration of the copyright law under Disney is separate.
Irreparable damage to the culture. So many things at this point should be in the public domain for reinterpretation by now.
Yeah. But yeah, like to a certain extent, there's sort of like it really is kind of a quid pro quo desire on my end, right? Is that like if I want contracts to be respected on the side of the artist, then I also have to be pro contracts being properly like observed on the side of the corporation, right? Because you can't just choose one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that just because the artist is smaller than the corporation, therefore you get to say fuck you to the corporation, right? Because then why would corporations ever want to...
There's got to be some sort of system in place. We can't just say fuck the system altogether. Yeah. That doesn't mean we have to like the system, that we can't look to change the system. We do have to respect that there is a system, though.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, fuck the Doyle estate. I wanted Sherlock Holmes in Ace Attorney, not Herlock fucking Sholmes.
Which is so funny because you had to get a Herlock Sholmes, and yet enough of Sherlock Holmes is in the sort of like what's the word, in the public domain.
Literally just because the Hound of the Baskerville is such a big plot point in that visual novel.
Enough of it is in the public domain that I get H.P. Lovecrafted Cthulhu crossover novels.
But like one reference to Hound of the Baskerville and the Doyle estate gets really hot and bothered.
Yeah. Well, I think I have individual issues with the ideas with the idea of estates being able to hold on to copyright beyond a certain point after an author's death, unless the estate is controlled by direct descendants, right? Like, in the case of the Tolkien estate, I actually don't think it's unreasonable for them to still hold copyright, right? Considering that Christopher Tolkien, up until recently, was still alive and still publishing Lord of the Rings content, right? And re-editing Lord of the Rings content. So I actually don't think it's unreasonable that the Tolkien estate still has control of the actual books of Tolkien. I think come back to me in like maybe 20 or 30 years, right? But like his descendants are still part of that estate.
Well, they're the ones that are publishing that. It's not even Tolkien himself that's publishing it. It's his descendants that are publishing it. So the copyright's in their names. It's under these newer years that they're being published in. It makes sense that they have a level of copyright control. It's when you get into stuff like...
No, but to a certain extent, I also think that in the case... So, like, obviously, Christopher Tolkien's still publishing new content. But I think, in my opinion, right, I don't find it odd that, for example, because of this... I would not say that The Hobbit should be public, what's the word?
Public domain.
Public domain, right? I think you need to wait a little bit longer after Christopher Tolkien's death, in my opinion. And I have reasons for that. They're separate.
I don't think there's a good way to legally hold that standard, because otherwise you get into the Disney thing of, well, they're still putting out Mickey Mouse, so Steamboat Willie should still be in the public domain.
Yeah,
or in the
different.
copyright hold.
That's different.
How legally? Yes, there's a blood direct descendancy difference, but that legally, that's not gonna change anything.
I know it's different. Intellectually, I want it to be different. Whereas, like the Doyle estate, I think at this point should give up some of that ironclad control. You know, especially when it's something as like pissant as like single individual stories in a series. It's like Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain, like the character of Sherlock Holmes the detective. At this point, it's just fucking.
Well, Mickey Mouse is in the public domain.
Well, yeah, but Disney is fucked up.
Superman is in the public domain.
Yeah.
But
I said I don't think that corporations should hold like a sort of like estate value over like copyright, right? I don't mind like individual like direct families. I don't mind somebody being like, my mother published this book and I'm still publishing like a revised version of this book and stuff. I don't mind that because that feels like a mom and pop sort of thing. Like I would support that because that's sort of like a family like business, right, in my mind. Whereas like a corporation saying, well, we created, you know, Mickey Mouse and so we don't want Mickey Mouse to go into the public domain, that feels different to me because that is then a corporation just trying to trade on the idea that so long as they just keep producing content, they can never go into public domain, right? Whereas like a family business, eventually at some point down the line, you're going to reach a generation where somebody's not going to be actively involved, you know?
I don't think you can define this all franchise based, because to really define it that way, you would have to define copyright law on a franchise basis as opposed to a work by work basis. Yeah. And I don't think that's very healthy.
No, it's not. But it's sort of like, I don't know. It's one of the reasons why it's the reason why I don't support like Mickey Mouse not being in the public, or Mickey Mouse like in the public domain, and Disney's like protest against that. I think they're being stupid, but at the same time, I also don't think it's stupid that the Tolkien estate is still holding so much control. See, right?
I respect the stuff that Christopher Tolkien was putting a lot of effort into himself, staying out of the public domain, because he put effort into that. That's very recent historically. That is work.
Yeah, some of those books have come out in the last decade.
That is
last couple of years, actually.
That is work that is as much of his own creative child as his father's. Yeah. Whereas something like The Hobbit, this is a story I think should be open to being retold and reinterpreted by different people in stage play, films.
But I'd make the argument that Christopher Tolkien had active involvement in the writing of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings.
He did, but that was written and published already years ago. And this is a story that's hit that old enough to where they've had plenty of time to tell the IP and put it out in the way they wanted to put it out. And they did put it out in ways that they liked to varying degrees or not.
Yeah, I think the estate needs to be less pissy about the quality of their adaptations, because I'm like, you signed off on it. Accept it and move on. Let's be honest here. If, you know, Lord of the Rings would not be nearly as universally and globally famous without the movie trilogy.
What I'm saying is we need to release the Soviet Hobbits from copyright jail.
Soviet Hobbit isn't in copyright jail. It's on YouTube for free.
Well, it is on YouTube for free, but it shouldn't be it should have been. It should be like the Soviet Hobbit should be allowed to be made today. I want a cheap Chinese Hobbit knockoff.
Well, you would get a cheap Russian Hobbit. Dude, that movie is so fucking bad.
I know.
It's actively like and here's the thing, guys. You can look this up on YouTube, right? It's Bilbo Baggins' Hobbita, and it was produced in the Soviet Union. I think around the same time as the animated series, but it's completely live action. It's like a 2 or 3 hour movie, I want to say. The problem is, when you look it up on YouTube, I think the top 2 like highest quality versions of it, if you click on the English subtitles, the person who did the subtitles was an absolute fucking jackass, and they went in and they just wrote in fake subtitles in English for the whole movie. So it's just like they just wrote in whatever the fuck they wanted, just like cuss words and shit for the entire movie.
I think a large part of why I feel this way about the public domain is there's a lot of like, think about like our like King Arthur mythos is a great example. Mm-hmm. King Arthur mythos, in the way it came out, probably could not exist under current copyright law.
No,
because it was developed by multiple authors iterating on each other, and the public domain kind of allows for a little bit of that. But if you cannot retell and reinterpret stories, you can never really have things sort of fade into becoming public or like sort of like cultural
framework stories.
Yeah.
That then become the basis for like hundreds and thousands of other little stories. I need a bio break.
I'll stick with chat here for a little longer.
Sorry,
I don't know if we'll go that much longer.
It's okay. I've had a lot of cheese today.
You're good. You're good. Have a good shit. Yeah. Copyright's fun, guys. I feel very similar about The Hobbit as I do Willy Wonka. I think these are timeless stories that we know very, very, very well. You missed a lot, tacos. This episode's like the back half of it has largely been a massive discussion on copyright, especially if, and you probably have heard of a lot of these instances, like the Evangelion the Evangelion short film incident, and how that sort of became a Twitter controversy. The near reincarnation situation on Twitter; those were both brought up. And Seki and I had a pretty long and involved discussion on copyright and the different cultural things that go into it. It was a great discussion. I have no idea. I've never actually done anything near, so I'm not the one to introduce Seki to Nier, unfortunately. That would be something Seki has to wander into independently, or something I would have to find first and then decide to take her into. And I have a lot of stuff on my plate. It was a very good discussion. Very good discussion. Twitter's a cesspool, though. Who are you? Twitter's a cesspool. I'm just an argumentative asshole. So I like... I'm not as often participating in it, though I do muddy my feet once in a while. But I love I love watching it. It's like watching blood sports, like gladiatory games. Life ruining it. Well, I think Fate is life ruining in maybe a not so good way. God damn it, that the gacha game costs money. But yeah. I'm gonna have to leave soon. I gotta rescue my pup. I don't really want to be getting that pup any later than 11 p.m. Okay, no one's asked if I'm alive, so... I don't know, tacos. Don't ask me. Ask who are you? I'm not the Nier fan. Those are words. I know Automata. I remember Automata because they had cross collaborations with Final Fantasy 15 while I was playing. Yeah, Grok was doing some illegal things. Even I had to delete Twitter for a while on that one. Still, though, unfortunately, enough of the internet happens on Twitter. I like to keep half an eye on it. I do wish that we would have a better text-based social media breakthrough than Twitter, though. To be quite honest, like we've had like TikTok kind of open up the video space. Instagram is fighting for its life in the video space. YouTube is coasting by on mostly infrastructure. I'm tired of video space development in social media. I need new text space social or media development because I've always preferred the text space. Because like as much as I like doing YouTube content, I like writing more. Feel more comfortable expressing opinions writing. Blue Sky is better. It is better, but it's unfortunately not drawn nearly the wide audience. Like, I hate to say it because a lot of people really hate how toxic and fighty Twitter gets. That was also kind of its appeal that Blue Sky loses a bit. Is I like when Twitter is so diametrically violently opposed to each other on there. I like having like the being able to go from super commie tweet on one end to Jesus Christ, are you a part of the KKK on the other. I like that level of toxicity on a social media platform because I like, so long as it's not venturing into illegal or harassment, I want a social media platform to feel like I'm wandering into, like I'm wandering into town. I don't know what kind of fucking people I'm about to meet. Where there's parts you want to stay away from in town, and parts that you stay that you try to keep to, communities you keep to. That's how I like my social media, and I feel like Blue Sky loses a little bit of that, just being pretty much a platform designed around people leaving because of the Elon Musk takeover of Twitter. I have very similar feelings to some of the right wing Twitter alternatives, where I didn't really want to engage with them. I want to engage with them less than Blue Sky, to be honest, because as much as I like seeing the dichotomy, I don't really want a platform flooded with racist, awful shit. But those platforms I don't like going to because it's just people that were like really, really pissed off that Twitter was censoring or their perceived censoring of right wing opinions. And you attract a certain kind of people with that, and I don't want to go to a platform that's just that either. So I feel like you lose that town square element with these platforms that are reactive to Twitter instead of developing their own space. But also, what space is there to develop anymore? Who knows? Yeah, no, I like going to Twitter for like artist spaces, and I like the opinions on Twitter. I feel like they're a little. I prefer even the most like egregious opinions I disagree with on Blue Sky. I prefer over straight up Nazi posting. And I'll even look at them and for to formulate my own thoughts, whether in support or opposition of. But I don't. Blue Sky is an app I use in balance with Twitter, which is it's leaning away from that community town square, but it's certainly a lot more. It's still got a more diverse blend than Blue Sky, unfortunately. So, but I do go to Blue Sky to get away from it once in a while, and I do respect the artists and the content creators, especially, that moved over there and use that as their primary social media platform to connect with their audiences. I respect Blue Sky in that regard. It's just not the same. Sent a death threat. Yeah, that's where like that town square. That's the problem with the town square element is there needs to be moderation on death threats, and suddenly it's like, well, what counts this way? What counts that way? And you get into this issue of people saying they're censored when no, you sent a death threat to somebody. It is much better for mental health, but I think the problem with the town square like space, like a Twitter or old social media, including YouTube, to be honest, yeah, you need to know not to take it seriously, and you need to know when to get off the internet, basically.
Touch grass.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about like Twitter, like how awful Twitter is, but how that's kind of the appeal of it.
The irony is I never really got into Twitter.
What I was saying is Twitter's kind of like a town square like thing. Like there's neighborhoods you don't want to go into,
yeah,
and you kind of like you there are parts where it's like it's safe, but you never know who you're gonna meet.
Yeah.
But admittedly, a lot of that is sort of fading as time goes on, because it is since the Elon Musk takeover, we're losing a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. And
the alternatives are too reactive to it, what kind of people are going to be going whenever there's an exodus of Twitter of any community or political alignment.
No, I have a Twitter. I use it sometimes, but like the accounts I follow like the Hermits for like updates on Hermitcraft. I follow like AO3 status down detector updates. I follow Satan. I follow some artists that I like.
You pretty standardly stay in the following section, not the For You section.
Yeah, I'm never in the For You section. The only place that I actively use the For You page is my TikTok feed. And that is because I long ago decided that I wanted to just let my TikTok evolve naturally. I remember it's like 2-3 years ago, people were like, you see things on your TikTok For You page that you don't think are really for you? Here's how you can reset your TikTok algorithm, like go back to the basics and restart forming it. And I was like, nope, there is like 7, no, not 7, like 6 years of cultivation in this TikTok feed, right? I just scroll through videos on my For You and like what I like and scroll past things I don't like.
Whereas, like, I like using Twitter because I like being able to go in one day and be like, oh, you're demanding for a complete destruction of capital as a system and a confiscation of all wealth from all classes. Oh, you're literally just part of the KKK.
Yeah.
I like that dichotomy and being able to like, yeah, no, it's dangerous to go alone out here.
Meanwhile, I prefer to let idiots be idiots in their own idiot spaces.
See, but I do too. It's just I like people watching. There's an appeal to going out on the Vegas Strip at night and watching drunk people do horrible shit.
I think online you and I enjoy watching different types of idiocy. I like watching like idiots in cars, right? Or like fails at work, or like somebody being actually genuinely fucking dumb, not let's burn down the world idiocy.
And then there's the fun stuff, the fandom stuff, where it's really toxic for no apparent reason. And sometimes you watch it like, man, this is stupid. But also, I'm feeling like I'm getting into a bar fight tonight. Come on, let's fucking go.
We just hit 3 hours, and if we had just hit 2 hours, I would get into a bar fight right here and now. Fandom has gone down over the last 2 months, right? And when I say gone down, I mean lines have been drawn.
She means fandom, the website, where I was using the general term. But
no. The general term.
Really?
The general fucking term.
You hate online fandom space?
No, I'm genuinely at like a 50-50 point between I have enough rage and pent-up desire to express myself that I'm almost tempted to script and film a video, but I'm also just as tempted to run it as a stream, right? Where I can just express myself. I know streams don't get as much viewership and they're not as popular, but the things that I have seen in the last 2 months happening, right? And granted, the last 2 months are sort of a microcosm of the greater problem that has been occurring for the last 5 years, right? Like, there is a definitive problem in fandom space, not any specific fandom, but in actual fandom spaces online, right? There is an actual definitive problem that started in 2020 and has become progressively worse. And not worse in like a, oh, people know what fandom is way. Worse in a, if we don't protect what we have, we are likely to start losing things, right? Because of what is happening. And I think it's like the things that are happening are so unhealthy, out of pocket, and like genuinely inappropriate in fandom spaces, right? And as someone who is a large participant in fandom spaces, and do not discount the silent participants in fandom spaces, right? I might not be making a Twitter post or writing an Instagram post or writing a comment, but I am liking, I am bookmarking, I am subscribing, I am downloading, I am kudosing, I am recommending, right? I am the person who is silently doing a lot in a fandom space, in many fandom spaces, and I am seeing what is happening.
Well, I think and we can do an entire Tea Time Chat episode, so maybe we don't exhaust this topic too much.
No,
today.
We can't today, but because I need another 2 hours on it, just on this topic.
But I think 2020 is a pretty commonly pointed out date that this occurred because COVID brought a lot of
it brought people who weren't into fandom spaces, but it brought them into fandom spaces in a way that is not natural.
Well, it brought them in a large, fast amount, so you don't have the fandom space culturally changing with them naturally over time.
Yeah.
And so you have this problem of these people interacting with a culture they're not familiar with, which creates a backlash that is sometimes as bad, if not worse, than what the people are introducing.
In the words of people that I agree with online, we need to go back to gaslighting and gatekeeping.
I disagree, but
No, there are specific ways we need to go back to gatekeeping. I swear to fucking God. Not in every way, but there are some ways.
and then the other thing I think that happened since COVID, separate from fandom altogether, culturally we have become more divided, just in a general sense. So when that starts trickling into fandom, it gets bad.
That's not the problem that's happening in fandom. That is a problem happening in fandoms. That is not the overall problem that is causing unhealthy fandom interactions. Like, fandoms have always been divided with people who come in, like, fast, and they have their opinions, and their opinions contradict the rest of the fan base, and they create these, like, very divisive lines that create conflicts within fandoms. But that's actually quite natural to the landscape of fandom spaces. Like, having a bunch of new people, for example, discover Boku no Hero in quarantine, come in, and then have a bunch of people who are like, oh, I don't like people who ship Deku and Bakugo, and then like a bunch of older people who are like, yes, we ship Deku and Bakugo. That's actually natural to fandom spaces. That conflict between people and like shipping and their opinions on shows, that's like, it's not healthy, but it's quite natural in fandom spaces. The other things that are happening right now in fandom spaces is not natural and is not healthy. There are bigger problems than fucking shipping wars and toxic fandoms at the moment.
I suppose I would need examples of what you're talking about specifically, because it's a little bit vague posty right now, and I
cannot get into this. If I start, we are gonna go till midnight.
But I have seen the argument happen online before, and oftentimes, like when the gatekeeping thing starts coming up, it's in response not to anything egregious. It's in response to stupid shipping shit or stupid like, oh, we used to all agree as a fandom that this work was bad, but we don't agree anymore.
No. My commentary about we need to go back to gatekeeping stuff has nothing to do with shipping or the quality of work being written. It has more to do with endemic issues, things that would bring Colleen Hoover back from the grave to sue us all. Not Colleen Hoover. What's her face? There's a very famous author who died like a year or two ago, and one of her most infamous contributions to fandom was that she is actually the literal origin for why people put "I do not own this work" in front of fan fiction, right? And she died recently, like a couple of years ago, right? Nope, can't get into it. We will go for 3 hours.
Okay, then we'll have to hash this out on another tea time one of these days, because unfortunately, I think our audience, the Fate audience, probably knows the fandom space I'm thinking of. Tacos alluded to it, the tourist versus gatekeeping, or tourist versus elitist.
You're thinking more in an individual fandom space, which in that case, I agree. You should not gatekeep an individual fandom based on what people like or dislike. I'm thinking about the actual culture of fandom and the way that it is perceived in a wider world scale, and the danger that is currently growing over people trying to
monetize,
profit off of, and what's the word? Censor, and remove. Right? It's a more of a not any specific fandom, but an actual overall movement.
Because and you'll immediately understand, because you and I have kind of had this not argument, but sort of this discussion on the reverse, where I was the one sort of pushing back a little bit. The gatekeeping and the tourism discussion is the exact discussion that got Joey, the anime man, into hot water over when he started dropping comparisons to really inapt comparisons to imperialism, and it was like, you might be taking this a little too seriously.
Yeah.
I know you're getting this from this this is the vibe this general debate is pushing into the conversation, but maybe you don't put that into words because it's just wrong.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at actual like changes that are happening in the overall culture of fandom and its perception that are negative.
And that's why I need to that's why I kind of felt like the need to give a little bit of pushback here, but also say that maybe we need to flesh this out a little bit more than vague.
I have many specific examples. Like, there have been dozens in the last 2 months alone. Dozens. And I think that they are all symptoms of a larger problem that I don't think it started in 2020, but I think the influx of people into fandom in 2020 who do not understand the history of fandom and fandom etiquette is where the largest crack. It's where somebody put like a little hammer and chisel into a crack that already existed and started pounding.
But yeah, we'll need to flesh out this discussion more, figure out what we exactly want to talk about ahead of time, and do another Tea Time chat one of these days.
That's why I was considering doing it as a video and not as a stream. Because if I do it as a stream, I need to come with receipts, you know? But if I do it as a video, I also come with receipts, so it's the same amount of prep either way.
But I think with the stream, like sort of how we did it today with the copyright discussion, where one of us could take a controlled opposition.
Yeah.
I think that's probably because that allows us to have a more dynamic discussion on this than just a rant.
Yeah. Oh, but man, we just cracked 3 hours.
Yes, we did. I gotta go rescue a dog.
I was gonna say we don't normally crack 3 hours on these.
Yeah.
So
it was a good stream though. I enjoyed it.
It was. I'm glad that y'all came to hang out with us and talk about
copyright,
shitty stuff.
Copyright law, the most fun thing in the universe.
Shitty legal things. But yeah, I think we'll see you guys later. I think tomorrow's stream is definitely going to be moved to evening. I'll make a post about it, but I'm almost positive it's getting moved to evening just so I can get errands done in the morning.
Well, I'll be in chat, most likely.
So yeah. And we're probably just going to do free quests and grinding and stuff. I'm not going to have time to read
play the event
a whole ton before then. But yeah. Alright, guys. Taco says, how's Maul? You can answer that.
Great. I love it so far. I kind of feel like this is like the Andor of animated series, which is unfortunate. I feel like this would have been, instead of doing Mandalorian and Grogu or Ahsoka as live action, they should have done Maul as live action, because it feels a lot more like Andor than the typical Filoni stuff. But yeah, ask me about it on Monday and I'll probably go into more detail. I hope you have a good one.
Bye, guys.